Yan Chuan, are you really going to bring so many people back to the sect? Zhu Jiansheng asked along the way with a strange expression. Why? You don't allow it? Yan Chuan smiled. You do allow it. Official disciples can bring their servants to the Day sect. But no one is as exaggerated as you. 3,000? 3,000. Do you know that all the disciples and servants of the Day sect add up to 4,000 people? You brought 3,000 people? You will have an explanation when you return to the sect. Zhu Jiansheng shook his head with a strange expression. Is that so? Then I'll explain slowly. Ha ha ha. Yan Chuan laughed indifferently. Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen had strange expressions on their faces. Not far away, ZZ looked at Yan Chuan's free and easy back. For some reason, the dark clouds covering her heart suddenly dissipated a little. A few days later, a group of people arrived at the foot of a mountain in the north of Yan State. Thousands of people looked at the rolling mountains in the distance. Zhu Jiansheng looked at the 3,000 embroidered uniform army with a wry smile on his face. Yan Chuan, actually, the sect leader gave me a flying boat this time. It can carry us through the air. In a few days, we will arrive at the Day sect. But, you have so many people. The flying boat can't handle it. We will go with you on the mountain path. Zhu Jiansheng said with a wry smile. Yes, don't worry. We will definitely escort you to the Day sect. The 7 swordsmen immediately expressed their stance. Thank you. Yan Chuan nodded. At this time, Hua Guang ran over from afar. My king, all the food is ready. The soldiers are ready to set off at any time. Hua Guang said solemnly. My king's sedan chair is also ready. Lu Jin said respectfully. No need. I will walk with everyone. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Yes. Everyone replied. Let's go. Yan Chuan shouted. Yes. All the soldiers carried their things and followed Yan Chuan to climb the mountain quickly. On the other hand, Zhu Jiansheng, the 7 swordsmen, and ZZ were able to reach the peak of the mountain with just a single step. The mountains in the north were like flat ground in front of these Qi realm experts. Although the mountain path was difficult, none of the 3,000 embroidered uniform army retreated. The path to immortality was right in front of them. Who would want to retreat? Yan Chuan led the soldiers. Even though the embroidered uniform army had to carry a lot of things, they didn't complain. In the next few days, the soldiers encountered 3 monsters. A snake, a bear, and a leopard. They were all in the essence state and were extremely fierce. Zhu Jiansheng and the others didn't interfere. They were all trained by the embroidered uniform army. Strength state. The 3 monsters had eaten a lot, but today, they were all eaten by a group of strength state cultivators. After eating, they complained that it wasn't enough for the 3 monsters. The army of 3,000 was like a swarm of locusts. From this moment on, they officially swept through the cultivation world. Wherever the locusts passed, nothing was left alive. Wherever the army passed, white bones were left. Chapter 216. Day sect, in a hall. A man in his 40s was sitting cross-legged in the north of the hall. He was dressed in a Taoist robe and had a broad face. He was meditating with his eyes closed. His body was emitting a faint mist. The only thing missing was that he did not have a left arm. He was only a one-armed Taoist. The one-armed Taoist slowly opened his eyes. 2 beams of light shot out from his eyes. In front of the one-armed Taoist was a young man. He was the 3rd-generation disciple of the Day sect, Feng Xiao, who was defeated by Yan Chuan with a grape a year ago. Congratulations, father. You've cultivated Qi into spirit and entered the immortal state. You've become a 1st-generation disciple. I've also become a 2nd-generation disciple. Feng Xiao smiled. The one-armed Taoist looked at Feng Xiao and smiled dotingly. Becoming a 2nd-generation disciple because your cultivation is not high enough. It's not good for your growth. No, becoming a second-generation disciple means you can enjoy more resources in the sect. What's not good for me? Feng Xiao was puzzled. You haven't tempered your mind enough. The one-armed Taoist shook his head. Tempered my mind? Feng Xiao frowned. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been defeated by Yan Chuan with a grape. The one-armed Taoist said patiently. Feng Xiao was embarrassed. Then, he said with a gloomy face, "Humph, Yan Chuan tricked me." How would I know? Tricked? Don't blame others for your incompetence. Fortunately, it was Yan Chuan. If it were someone else, you would be dead by now. The one-armed Taoist said with a straight face. Father, why are you speaking for him? Have you forgotten? Your left arm was lost because of his father, Yen Tao. If it weren't for that traitor, Yen Tao, who colluded with the demonists, you wouldn't have. Feng Xiao said with hatred. Bastard, Yen Tao is the previous sect leader. Don't be disrespectful to him. The one-armed Taoist said in a deep voice. So what if he's the previous sect leader? Grandfather was the sect leader 2 generations ago. Back then, he gave up the position to Yen Tao. I didn't expect him to bring so much trouble. Grandfather had no choice but to take charge of the Dai sect again. Feng Xiao said unhappily. Trouble? Although Yen Tao had brought trouble to the Dai sect, his contributions to the Dai sect were incomparable. If it weren't for him, would the Dai sect be where it was today? In the future, you are not allowed to speak ill of Yen Tao. Do you hear me? The one-armed Taoist said in a deep voice. All right, I won't tell you. Feng Xiao said in a huff. Father, if it weren't for your broken arm, you would have reached the divine realm 6 years ago. But fortunately, 6 years later, Father is still a divine realm expert, and has also become the peak master of the Qian Peak. You can fight for the position of the next sect leader. Grandpa is choosing now. Feng Xiao smiled again. Peak master. Hee, we are not the only divine realm experts in our sect. It's just that the other divine realm experts don't want to be bound by this. I've already lost an arm, so I'm not suitable to fight for the position of sect leader. Moreover, I'm not relying on your grandfather today. I have to rely on myself for everything, and so do you. The one-armed Taoist said. I know. You always say that. You are my father. If I don't rely on you, others will look down on me. Feng Xiao said strangely. Alas, you should learn more from Jiang Nan. The one-armed Taoist said helplessly. Eldest senior brother? No, now that I'm a second-generation disciple, he is my martial nephew. Feng Xiao said proudly. Martial nephew? Oh, soon he will be your senior brother again. The one-armed Taoist shook his head. Ah! Jiang Nan is a genius. Last time, he was defeated by Yan Chuan. Instead of being depressed, he became motivated. Now, he has reached the completion of the essence state and can break through to the Qi state at any time. The one-armed Taoist said in a deep voice. Chapter 217. Ah! It can't be. It's only been a year. In just a year, he rose 3 levels. How is that possible? Feng Xiao exclaimed. Nothing is impossible. Jiang Nan is a genius himself. Now, he's working extremely hard. Hard work will eventually pay off. And you, cultivate well. Otherwise, even if you're a second-generation disciple, no one will think highly of you. The one-armed Taoist said in a deep voice. Isn't there still Yan Chuan? Bastard, do you like to compare yourself with others? How did I give birth to such an unfilial son? The one-armed Taoist said angrily. Father, don't be angry. I didn't say. Feng Xiao's expression was strange. Go back to your room and reflect. The one-armed Taoist said unhappily. All right. Feng Xiao walked out of the main hall helplessly. Sigh. The one-armed Taoist sighed slightly, lamenting his son's ignorance. Forget it, he's still young. He'll understand in the future. The one-armed Taoist comforted himself. In the forest, the 3,000 embroidered army soldiers were climbing towards the north. After climbing a mountain, they set up camp beside a large lake and rested for a while. Zhu Jiansheng and Yan Chuan sat beside the lake, drinking tea and chatting. Zhu Jiansheng, tell me about the Dai sect. Yan Chuan asked while drinking tea. All right. Zhu Jiansheng nodded. The Dai sect leader, Feng Tairan, is the sect leader 2 generations ago. After your father died, he took over the Dai sect. The sect leader lives on the main peak. Next are the 4 peak leaders, Heaven, Earth, Xian and Huang. The yellow peak leader, Gao Bufan, is the master of the 7 swordsmen. The black peak leader, Feng Tianyu, is the son of sect leader Feng Tairan. The Earth Peak's peak master is my teacher, Mo Wu Hui. Zhou Jiansheng gave a simple introduction. Yellow peak leader, Gao Bufan. Black peak leader, Feng Tianyu. Earth peak leader, Mo Wu Hui. What about Heaven Peak? What about the last Heaven Peak? Yan Chuan asked doubtfully. Sky Peak? Zhu Jiansheng frowned slightly. The Heavenly Peak Master was originally under your father's control. Not only was your father the sect leader, but he was also the Heavenly Peak Master. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Peak suffered a great loss when your parents died. The remaining disciples all went to the other 3 peaks. Now, the Heavenly Peak is empty. Zhu Jiansheng said in a deep voice. Yan Chuan nodded. In the Dai sect, other than naming people based on their master's lineage, the other way is cultivation. Zhu Jiansheng said after some thought. Oh? 3rd-generation disciples will be promoted to 2nd-generation disciples once they reach the Qi realm. Deity realm cultivators were the 1st-generation disciples. For example, if a 1st-generation disciple takes in a disciple, even if the disciple has no cultivation, he is still a 2nd-generation disciple, just like you. Your father is a 1st-generation disciple, so you are a 2nd-generation disciple. Zhu Jiansheng explained. Oh? There's such a saying. Then, what if I inherit everything from my father and become the Heavenly Peak Master? Yan Chuan asked doubtfully. Ah. Zhu Jiansheng looked at Yan Chuan blankly. Can't I become the Heavenly Peak Master? Yan Chuan asked doubtfully. This, in theory, you can because your current identity belongs to the Heavenly Peak. You are the only one in the Heavenly Peak, so you can naturally be the Heavenly Peak Master. However, if you stay in the Heavenly Peak, who will you take as your master? You will belong to whoever you take as your master. Zhu Jiansheng said blankly. I won't take anyone as my master. I just want to inherit everything from my father. Yan Chuan shook his head. Chapter 218. What? You don't want a master? Then who will teach you how to cultivate? How are you going to cultivate? It's not enough to just read the books in the sect. Without a master to teach you, how are you going to get the experience? How slow is your cultivation speed? Zhu Jiansheng asked. There's no need. I'll find someone when I want a master. Since I'm the only one in Heavenly Peak, I can't leave. Yan Chuan said. Zhu Jiansheng's face twitched. He couldn't figure out what Yan Chuan was thinking. If I become the Peak Master of Heavenly Peak, then I'm. Yan Chuan looked at Zhu Jiansheng. You're a 1st-generation disciple. Zhu Jiansheng was speechless. If that was the case, why did Zhu Jiansheng have to call Yan Chuan martial uncle? The sect master and the other 3 peak masters are all in the divine realm? Yan Chuan asked. All of them. Other than the 3 peak masters, there are some idle martial uncles. They are also 1st-generation disciples. There are about 10 of them in total. By the way, there are 2 elders in the sect. They are traveling the world. I haven't seen them before. When Sect Master Feng Tairan gave up his position to your father, he became the third elder. However, because of that incident, he returned to the Dai sect and became the sect master. Zhu Jiansheng explained. Yes. Yan Chuan nodded. Just as the two of them were talking, the large lake on the side suddenly started to churn. Gurgle. 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 The water in the lake churned, causing everyone to look nervous. The 7 swordsmen, who were eating grilled fish at the side, immediately ran over. ZZ, who was in a small tent, also walked out anxiously. The 3,000 soldiers immediately stopped eating and quickly grabbed their weapons with vigilance. Hua Guang and Lu Jin quickly guarded Yan Chuan. Rumble. In the Great Lake, the water was churning more and more violently. Huge waves even soared into the sky. What's going on? Yan Chuan asked doubtfully. Zhu Jiansheng frowned and said, I don't know. We used to come to this black dragon swamp a lot, but we never found out about this. Ong ho! Suddenly, an indistinct roar came from the black dragon pool. Following this roar, the lake water surged violently once again. What's going on? We've all swum in the lake before, so why are there demonic beasts at the bottom of the lake? This has never happened before. The 3 swordsmen were puzzled. As he spoke, a powerful aura emanated from the bottom of the lake, forcing the 3,000 soldiers to retreat. It's a monster, and it should be in the Qi Jing realm. Stronger than me. Peak of Qi Jing. Zhou Jiansheng's face darkened. That sound just now, it sounded a bit like a dragon's roar. You said this is the Black Dragon Pool? Yan Chuan looked at Zhu Jiansheng. Yes, but there were no monsters here before. I used to come here often. Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. I know. ZZ suddenly said. Everyone turned their heads. Miss Z. You know. What's going on? Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. ZZ looked at Yan Chuan. Even though she was wearing a mask, her eyes flashed with guilt. It's me. That day, I was too close to you. Because of me, you had to suffer. ZZ's voice sounded like she was about to cry. Ah! Zhu Jiansheng and the others' faces changed as they moved away from ZZ in fear. It's not your fault. Yan Chuan shook his head. No, it's me. There were no monsters here before. It's me. Because of me, you. I said, it's not your fault. Yan Chuan once again interrupted ZZ's guilt. After that, Yan Chuan looked at the lake again. Zhu Jiansheng, 7 swordsmen, since the monster in the lake is only in the Qi Jing realm, you should be able to resist it, right? Yan Chuan looked at the 8 of them. Don't worry. As long as it's in the Qi Jing realm, the monsters will only be a side dish. Zhu Jiansheng laughed. Chapter 219. Hong! The Black Dragon Pool's water suddenly exploded, and huge waves rolled out in all directions. At the center, a huge monster suddenly rushed out. It was 1,000 feet long and pitch black. Its 4 powerful limbs grabbed the surface of the water. It was a huge black dragon. Its dragon whiskers fluttered in the wind. Its dragon mouth roared and its eyes were filled with anger. The only difference was that it did not have a dragon horn. Ong! The monster looked up to the sky and roared. The surrounding lake water seemed to be under its control and swept in all directions. The powerful sound waves caused the surrounding air to tremble. Some members of the embroidered uniform army couldn't stand it and had to cover their ears. Black Flood Dragon. Yan Chuan narrowed his eyes. Flood Dragon? Zhu Jiansheng also exclaimed. Xing! 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 The 7 swordsmen quickly pulled out their swords with vigilance. Where the Flood Dragon is, there must be vassals. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Vassal? Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. Bam! 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 As the flood dragon emerged from the water, more and more giant heads emerged from the bottom of the water. Black, red, green, yellow, all of them. They were huge snake heads. There were 10 of them in total, and each of them had a tumor on their head. They hissed as they flicked their tongues. The flood dragon roared, and the 10 giant snakes prostrated themselves as if they were worshipping the flood dragon. Qi Jing. Zhu Jiansheng's face darkened. These 10 snake kings are also in the Qi state. Senior brother, where is the flood dragon? The 4 swordsmen shouted. He's also in the Qi state. Although he's reached the peak of the Qi state, he hasn't reached the Qi state yet. Zhu Jiansheng confirmed. Bam! 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 Everything was not over yet. One after another, snake heads emerged from the lake. 10, 100, 200. 200 huge snakes emerged from the lake. These 200 are elite realm demonic snakes. Zhu Jiansheng frowned. A flood dragon, 10 Qi state snake kings, and 200 essence state snake demons? How could this be? Why were they all at the bottom of the lake? How did you get here? The 5 swordsmen swallowed his saliva and asked in surprise. Roar! The flood dragon stopped roaring and turned to look at Yan Chuan. A breeze blew past. The flood dragon's eyes were cold as it stared at the group of people in front of it. SSS. The 10 snake kings hissed at the flood dragon. You want to eat them? The flood dragon suddenly spoke. Hiss 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 hiss. All the snake kings nodded. Not good. Zhu Jiansheng's expression changed. Yan Chuan, let's go. Zhu Jiansheng immediately whispered. No, we can't get away. It's too late. Yan Chuan shook his head. That was because hundreds of demonic beasts were staring at everyone greedily, as if they had not eaten for a long time. Where did they come from? The 3 swordsmen asked with an ugly expression. No matter where it came from, we don't have time to investigate it now. The 8 of you, stop the snake kings. I will deal with the flood dragon. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Ha! Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen were confused. Yan Chuan, are you kidding? Zhu Jiansheng did not believe him. Even if Yan Chuan was smart, he had no time to prepare for this battle. How could he deal with the demonic beasts? Moreover, it was a flood dragon. Although the Jiao dragon was also in the Qi state, he was much stronger than the Snake King because they were both in the Qi state. It's decided. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Chapter 220. Hua Guang. Yan Chuan quickly ordered. Yes, Your Majesty. Hua Guang replied immediately. Lead the first legion and kill the elite realm snakes. Yan Chuan ordered. Yes, Your Majesty. Hua Guang replied. Lu Jin. This old servant is here. Give me the poisoner's relic, the astral fog. Yan Chuan said. Yes, Your Majesty. Lu Jin quickly handed the astral fog over. Yan Chuan drew the Jade Emperor sword from his back. He held the sword in one hand and the astral fog in the other. Yan Chuan, I'm sorry. I'm a jinx. If not for me. ZZ said guiltily. Huh, no, you're not a jinx. You're my lucky star. Yan Chuan stopped her with a smile. Ha! Be careful and protect yourself later. Yan Chuan said. Ah! ZZ said blankly. In the distance, the flood dragon spoke in human language. You've been following me for so long. Your loyalty is commendable. I'll reward you with this human flesh. The flood dragon said. Roar! Roar! The 10 serpent kings roared excitedly. With the flood dragon's permission, more than 200 snakes quickly swam toward the shore. Their eyes were filled with ferocity. Whoosh! More than 100 snakes rushed over, creating a huge wave. Squad leaders, squad leaders. 15 people against 1 snake. Retreat into the forest and use the trees to hinder the snake's movements. Kill the snakes and make them your food. Hua Guang shouted. Yes, Your Majesty. The 3,000 embroidered army quickly split into 200 groups and scattered in all directions. Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen released their powerful auras. The snakes did not dare to approach them. The 200 snakes came ashore and immediately pounced on the embroidered army. Boom! Boom! Wherever the demonic snake passed, it would smash a large number of mountain rocks and break a large number of trees as it charged towards the embroidered army. The 10 great serpent kings stared at Zhu Jiansheng and his group. After all, the origin chi in the meat of high-grade demonic beasts was abundant, and in the eyes of demonic beasts, human flesh was the same. High-grade demonic beasts would naturally eat other high-grade demonic beasts. Roar! The Snake King roared. Shing! 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 Zhu Jiansheng and the 7 swordsmen drew their swords and soared into the sky. Clang! 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 A group of sword lights shot out and instantly collided with the group of snake kings. Demonic beasts focused on tempering their bodies. Therefore, the snakeskin of the snake kings was comparable to a strong armor. When the sword light collided with it, it only produced the sound of metal hitting stone. Roar! Roar! The snake opened its mouth, and poisonous smoke rose from all directions, swallowing and spitting at the cultivators. Humph! Zhu Jiansheng snorted coldly. The aura around his body went wild, and the sword light exploded, forcing the 2 demon snakes to retreat. Boom! 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 Strong winds blew in all directions. The group of swordsmen were extremely powerful. Mud, rocks, and lake water were all thrown up into the air during the battle. Sword light soared into the sky, and poisonous gas wreaked havoc. Zhu Jiansheng and the great swordsmen each fought against 2 snake kings, while the other 6 fought against 1 snake king each. The battle was intense. It was an inexplicable encounter. ZZ stood not far from Yan Chuan, as if she wanted to protect Yan Chuan. Hua Guang and Lu Jin also stood behind Yan Chuan. Hua Guang, Lu Jin, go and help the First Legion. Wherever there's danger, support them. Yan Chuan ordered. Ah! What about the king? Hua Guang asked anxiously. I'm facing a flood dragon. You can't help me. Yan Chuan shook his head. Ah! All right. The 2 complied and quickly retreated. Only Yan Chuan and ZZ were left. In the distance, the flood dragon standing on the lake's surface also stared at the surroundings. Chapter 221. The flood dragon's face darkened as it looked at the battle around it. At the same time, the flood dragon was also paying attention to Yan Chuan. The flood dragon could speak human language and had a certain level of intelligence as well. Naturally, he could tell from the previous scene that the leader of the other party was actually that kid in the strength state. The flood dragon was confused. Why did so many people listen to him? What was so special about him? Yan Chuan, let me take you away. ZZ said anxiously. No need, don't worry. Yan Chuan comforted her. But you're only in the strength state, you're only in the strength state. ZZ was so anxious that she was about to cry. Strength state? That's enough. Yan Chuan shook his head. No, there are so many demonic snakes. We can't stop them. Let's go before the flood dragon comes. ZZ was about to fly to Yan Chuan. No need, I won't go. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Trash, bite that kid to death. The flood dragon shouted angrily in the direction of the snake kings. When the snake kings heard the flood dragon's anger, they became furious. Roar! With a loud roar, one of the snake kings jumped out of the battle circle and swam towards Yan Chuan, even though it was heavily injured by the great swordsman. Another Snake King was dragging the great swordsman. Yan Chuan, go! Zhujiansheng said anxiously. Yan Chuan turned a deaf ear to him. The Snake Kings roared and swam towards Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan looked at the flood dragon and sneered, a snake transformed into a flood dragon? You're so lucky. Among all the snakes, you're the only one who can transform into a flood dragon. However, you're still a flood dragon. You're still my meal. Meal on a plate? Humph. You're courting death. The flood dragon shouted angrily. Snakes wanted to eat humans, humans wanted to eat snakes too. If a Chi state expert said that, the flood dragon would not be so angry. However, a mere strength state mortal dared to disrespect it. The flood dragon was furious and the Snake Kings moved even faster. I'll hold off the Snake King. Hurry up and leave. ZZ said anxiously. I'm fine. Be careful. Yan Chuan shook his head. ZZ answered and stepped forward. A long sword suddenly appeared in ZZ's hand. He charged towards the Snake King. Roar! The Snake King roared and opened its mouth to bite ZZ. However, it was at this moment that ZZ miraculously appeared. Boom! In the aftermath of the battle in the distance, a huge rock flew over. Coincidentally, it fell right into the Snake King's open mouth. Gulp! The Snake King's eyes were filled with confusion. What did I just swallow? Chop! Violet Purple slashed out with her sword. The Snake King glared at ZZ. With a twist of its body, it swung its huge tail at ZZ. Its strength was ferocious. As it swung its tail, it brought forth a large amount of stellar energy. Like a storm, it was extremely ferocious. A whip of death lashed out at ZZ. Creak! The Snake King's tail was halfway through when its body suddenly slipped. With a creak sound, its tail deviated and landed on a huge rock. The Snake King's body fell flat on the ground. It fell in front of ZZ in an extremely embarrassing manner. It was as if it had deliberately placed itself on the chopping board. Clang! ZZ easily struck the snake's head. Roar! The Snake King let out a frustrated roar. Boom! Another huge rock from the aftermath of the battle came crashing down. The snake's head was smashed into the ground. Ha ha ha! The 7 swordsmen who were fighting in the distance laughed. At the same time, they looked at the Snake King with pity. Of all the people you could fight, you chose Miss C. Are you courting death? On the other hand, the Flood Dragon's face darkened. His capable subordinate had embarrassed himself just now. How could he fall in the middle of a battle? Chapter 222. The Flood Dragon's face darkened. His right-hand man had embarrassed himself too much just now. How could he fall down in the middle of a battle? Roar! The Snake King roared as it pulled its head out from the ground. The shattered rocks smashed towards ZZ. Ah! ZZ panicked, and the sword in her hand was suddenly knocked away by a piece of rock. She was in a sorry state. The Flood Dragon regained its composure. Caw! Coincidentally, the long sword fell into a crevice, and the sword hilt was inserted into the crevice. Not good. ZZ grabbed the sword with her jiaohu. At this moment, the Snake King straightened its posture and revealed a ferocious expression. Roar! With a loud roar, the Snake King was enraged. It twisted its body again and threw itself at ZZ. Squeak! Under the Flood Dragon's confused gaze, the Snake King slipped again at the same spot. Another horse fell to the ground. What was worse was that his head just happened to fall onto the long sword that was wedged in between the rocks. Chi! The sword pierced into the Snake King's right eye. Blood splattered everywhere. Roar! 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 The Snake King shook its body in pain. Had it gone blind for the second time? Was it blind? The unlucky Snake King hissed in pain. Who could understand how it felt at this moment? Slipped? Or even blinded its eye? The flood dragon's face turned ugly again. Trash! The flood dragon shouted. It's fine if you can't beat it, but you crippled yourself before even fighting? Why did I take in such a trash? Roar! The flood dragon roared as it rode on the waves. ZZ, run, run! Yan Chuan's face changed. It's okay, it can't do anything to me. ZZ smiled. No, this flood dragon is different. It can transform into a dragon and has great luck. Your curse won't affect it much. Yan Chuan said anxiously. Ah! ZZ was stunned. At this moment, the flood dragon was already in front of ZZ. Roar! The flood dragon roared and opened its mouth to bite ZZ. The huge dragon's mouth spewed out a large amount of fishy smell, and in the blink of an eye, it was right in front of ZZ. Ha! ZZ seemed to be stunned. Boom! Suddenly, a figure knocked ZZ away. He replaced ZZ. Whoa! The flood dragon swallowed the figure in one gulp. ZZ, who was flying through the air, saw clearly that it was Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan had knocked her away. ZZ was stunned. Bang! ZZ landed on the ground. No! ZZ howled in grief. Hong long long. Following ZZ's sorrowful roar, the surrounding ground suddenly shook, and deep trenches even appeared in some places. It was as if a great earthquake had erupted due to ZZ's emotions. Dark clouds suddenly covered the sky. The experts fighting in all directions were all inexplicably shocked. What's going on? Zhujiansheng and the others were shocked. Ah, ah, ah. The flood dragon roared in agony. Hong long long. The flood dragon rolled in agony. Yan Chuan, nothing must happen to you. Yan Chuan, Yan Chuan. ZZ said anxiously. Hong long long. The surrounding earthquake continued, and the sky was covered with dark clouds. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The flood dragon was also writhing in pain. Chapter 223. What's wrong with the flood dragon? And where's Yan Chuan? The people fighting around were anxious. ZZ kept swinging her jiaohu as she pounced on the flood dragon. Boom! 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 The flood dragon rolled on the ground. Impossible! What did I eat? What did I eat? The flood dragon cried out in pain. And my injuries? Why did my injuries from 10 years ago relapse? How is this possible? The flood dragon continued to cry out. The flood dragon rolled on the ground, but ZZ pounced on it. As for the Snake King, who had been fighting with ZZ at the beginning, he was still in a tragic state. His right eye had been blinded, and now his left eye was blinded as well. He was covered in injuries and looked miserable. Spit him out. Spit Yan Chuan out. ZZ said anxiously. Curse? I'm cursed. No, not just that. What's in my stomach? Ah, ah. The flood dragon writhed in pain. The muscles in the flood dragon's stomach quickly twisted and tried to swallow Yan Chuan. However, the moment Yan Chuan entered the flood dragon's mouth, he crushed Poisoner's remnant, the mist shield. Once the mist shield was broken, a large amount of black gas enveloped Yan Chuan. No matter how strong the flood dragon's stomach was, it could not hurt Yan Chuan at all. The Jade Emperor's sword in his hand stirred and immediately absorbed the flood dragon's blood. The Jade Emperor's sword that had turned black suddenly turned bright red as it absorbed the flood dragon's blood. Flood dragons have dragon scales. No one can do anything to you. Even Zhujiansheng and the others can't break your dragon scales. Unfortunately, you're a newborn flood dragon. Your wild nature hasn't changed. Are you still used to swallowing like a snake? Do you really think the twisting force in your stomach is that great? Yan Chuan sneered. With the mist shield, the Jade Emperor's sword absorbed the flood dragon's blood. Facing such high-quality blood, the Jade Emperor's sword was very excited. As it absorbed, it trembled. No, no! The flood dragon cried out in pain and rolled around. ZZ pounced towards the flood dragon. Wherever she went, rocks would fall from all directions, ruthlessly adding insult to injury. Obviously, Yan Chuan's conjecture about the flood dragon's great fortune had no effect in front of ZZ. As long as one did evil to ZZ, no matter if one was a snake or a dragon, they would still be unlucky. Moreover, it was an instant misfortune. Release Yan Chuan, release Yan Chuan. ZZ's eyes were filled with tears. Tears flowed out of ZZ's eyes. The flood dragon rolling on the ground also had tears of hatred in its eyes. I want him to come out too. He wouldn't come out. The powerful pressure caused the mist surrounding Yan Chuan to tremble. Yan Chuan raised his eyebrows. He knew that the astral fog wouldn't last for much longer. Suddenly, Yan Chuan saw a red light. Flood dragon's heart. Good. Jade Emperor's sword, if you want to suck, then suck it for me. Use all your strength to suck it out. Quick, quick, quick. Yan Chuan said excitedly. Screech. The Jade Emperor's sword stabbed into the flood dragon's heart. Roar. The flood dragon suddenly opened its eyes and roared. Its body writhed even more violently. It was in so much pain that it was sweating. Spit it out. Spit it out. ZZ cried. The flood dragon was in so much pain that tears streamed down its face. I want to vomit, but he won't come out. Why did this happen as soon as I came out? In the flood dragon's stomach. Hum. The astral fog trembled more violently. Clearly, it couldn't last much longer. Quick, quick, quick. Yan Chuan said anxiously. The Jade Emperor's sword was bright red. Around the sword, red mist rose. The evil aura was no longer black, but a mutated red evil aura. Chapter 224. The Jade Emperor's sword absorbed the blood energy, but its grade was too low. The flood dragon's blood energy was too strong and couldn't be absorbed in a short time. Quick, quick, quick. The evil aura of the blood sword became stronger and stronger. At the same time, blood energy poured into Yan Chuan's body. If it was in the past, Yan Chuan would definitely disperse this energy. However, time was tight and Yan Chuan didn't reject it. Instead, he kept absorbing it. When the blood energy entered his body, Yan Chuan was surrounded by red mist. At the same time, Yan Chuan felt his blood boiling. Blood boiling? This was a very strange feeling. Yan Chuan didn't know what was going on, but he felt more and more excited. Plop. 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 Yan Chuan's heart beat twice as fast. Twice as fast. What is this feeling? Yan Chuan was shocked. Yan Chuan felt more and more excited. It was a kind of excitement that he had never felt before. His whole body felt like it was on fire. A murderous feeling suddenly filled his body. Kill. 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 Yan Chuan couldn't help but shout. At the same time, Yan Chuan's hair slowly turned red. It was as red as blood. Even his red hair was growing rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it was twice as long. What's wrong with me? Is it the evil aura that's affecting me? No, it's not the evil aura. It seems to be my instinct. My murderous nature. No. Yan Chuan said with an ugly expression. On one hand, Yan Chuan's instinct made him feel bloodthirsty, murderous, and excited. On the other hand, the Emperor's will was strongly suppressing him, making him calm down. One was excitement, the other was calmness. The two wills were in conflict. Reason made Yan Chuan calm down, but instinct made Yan Chuan excited. Yan Chuan's instincts and rationality even made him think that he was sick. "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?" Yan Chuan shouted. Boom! With a wave of his hand, the flood dragon's heart was cut in half. So powerful? That's not right. I'm only at the 9th level of the power realm. It's impossible for me to exert such great strength. But why do I have such great strength? Yan Chuan was getting more and more confused. For Yan Chuan, who had everything under his control, Yan Chuan could not adapt to losing control of his body at this moment. Buzz! The astral fog was shaking more and more. Roar! The flood dragon let out a sorrowful cry and fell to the ground. Its heart had been cut off. His life was over. Even as it died, the flood dragon's eyes were wide open. It didn't understand why it was so unlucky. Why did it die so unjustly? Boom! Yan Chuan ran out of the flood dragon's mouth at the last moment before the fog dissipated. Who? Yan Chuan landed on the ground, creating a large cloud of dust. On the other side, ZZ, who was crying, was stunned when she saw Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan, you're fine. I'm glad you're fine. ZZ pounced on him excitedly. Just as she was about to reach Yan Chuan, she suddenly stopped as if she was frozen on the spot. ZZ calmed down and the earthquake stopped as well. Snake Monster, Snake King, and the rest of the experts all looked at the flood dragon. The flood dragon is dead? Yan Chuan killed the flood dragon? Zhujiansheng and the rest were at a loss. However, they were more attracted by Yan Chuan's current state. Yan Chuan's hair was disheveled. His originally black hair was now bright red, and it even reached his waist. Yan Chuan's hair was disheveled, and his hair was now bright red. From afar, Yan Chuan looked extremely demonic. He had a blood sword, red hair, and a fearless gaze. Standing in the roaring blood mist, he looked both demonic and demonic. Blood Devil Yan Tao! Zhujiansheng exclaimed. Martial Uncle was also like this in the past. Blood red hair and demonic nature. The great swordsman also exclaimed. Roar 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 roar. On the other side, the flood dragon died and the snakes cried out in grief. Chapter 226. Yan Chuan's heart slowly calmed down, and his blood stopped boiling. He slowly calmed down and recovered. Around them, the group of experts seemed to be dumbfounded. Wang Gang Kai. Hu Guang still had lingering fear. Yan Chuan's state just now was too evil. His sword was as fast as light and he was bloodthirsty. No one was allowed to get close. ZZ covered her mouth, and her eyes were filled with joy and surprise. Yan Chuan's heart calmed down. My body is not unwell, and there are no sequelae from the disintegration of the poison. Where did that power come from? I'm only in the strength state now, how can I have the power of the essence state? And that speed, even the essence state in my previous life couldn't reach it. What's going on? Yan Chuan frowned and pondered. At the same time, another thought came to his mind. Just now, I was only in a semi-excited state, and I didn't fully demonize, but I had such power. What if I just let it go? Let it go, and demonize with all my strength? What should I do? Yan Chuan's heart was in turmoil. Yan Chuan knew clearly that power came from cultivation, and it wouldn't increase for no reason. It definitely wouldn't. But just now, it did increase. Why? What was going on? Kill! Shoot! The battle continued. Yan Chuan slowly opened his eyes, and there was still some confusion in his eyes. Looking at the demon snake in front of him, Yan Chuan was deep in thought. Wang! Hu Guang came forward. I'm fine. Go help the others. The flood dragon is dead, and the demon snakes will definitely escape. Don't let them escape. Kill them all. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Yes. Hua Guang replied. At this moment, a group of demon snakes did start to escape, but the army was already deployed. How could they let them escape? Absolutely not. Yan Chuan, you're fine. It's great that you're fine. ZZ wiped the tears on her mask. Of course I'm fine. Yan Chuan chuckled as he walked over. Don't come over, I can't hurt you anymore. ZZ retreated in fear. I'm fine, aren't I? Yan Chuan comforted. Don't come over. ZZ shouted. Stop right there. Yan Chuan shouted. ZZ paused in a daze. Yan Chuan slowly walked to ZZ. She stared into ZZ's eyes. Aren't I fine? Don't worry, I'm blessed. Moreover, you've helped me a lot this time. Without you, how could I send so much meat at once? Yan Chuan said with a smile. But... ZZ still shook her head. No buts. Everything has two sides. Even if you are cursed, as long as you control it well, you can turn it into a blessing, right? Yan Chuan smiled and comforted him. Staring at Yan Chuan, ZZ felt warmth in her heart for some reason. It had been a long time since he had felt this way. When was the last time? ZZ recalled. Brother Z, don't worry. Your daughter is our daughter. We'll take good care of her. I've already given birth to a son. Now, we'll become in-laws. In the future, she'll be my son Yan Chuan's wife. When we're not around, my son will take care of her. He won't let her suffer. The warmth from the last time was still vivid in her mind. Now, it was happening again. ZZ looked at Yan Chuan in a daze. She was choked with emotions for a moment. Don't worry. I've already said that you're my lucky star. Yan Chuan laughed. Thank you. ZZ said softly. Chapter 227. You're welcome. Let me check myself first. I don't know why my hair turned red just now. Yan Chuan said with a smile. No, it's blood red hair. It's fine. Your father was like that too. ZZ said immediately. My father? Yan Chuan was confused. Yes, many people know that uncle became famous because of his blood red hair. People gave him the title of Blood Demon. I heard that during the Heavenly Bestowment Conference, uncle defeated all the experts in his blood red hair state and stole the limelight. ZZ explained. My father was like that too. Does it run in my family? Yan Chuan was surprised. I'm not sure. But I think your father left you a letter. It should be in the Day sect. You should know everything after you inherit your father's legacy. ZZ explained. Okay. Yan Chuan nodded. My father can do it too. Yan Chuan was relieved. At least it wasn't a problem with cultivation. Blood demon. Blood demon. 2 days later. At the Black Dragon pool, Yan Chuan cleaned himself up and walked back to the shore after washing up. At the moment, the Black Dragon Lake was surrounded by a large number of demon snakes, snake kings, and flood dragons. Zhu Jiansheng, the 7 swordsmen, and the others surrounded the flood dragon's body and looked at it. Their eyes were shining with excitement. Hua Guang ran to them. King, demon snakes, none of them escaped. They were all killed. 100 of our brothers were slightly injured and 8 of our brothers were severely injured. Hua Guang said in a deep voice. Okay. Yan Chuan nodded. Zhu Jiansheng, the 7 swordsmen. Yan Chuan shouted. At this moment, the 8 of them were also in a sorry state, each with injuries on their bodies. But their faces were filled with excitement. Yan Chuan, you are really something. That was a Jiao dragon. Even though it was only at the Qi state, it was still powerful enough to kill an immortal state warrior. The three swordsmen looked at Yan Chuan in disbelief. You guys killed the 10 great snake kings, you guys are also amazing. Yan Chuan laughed. What? The snake kings were confused because of the death of the flood dragon. That's why we took advantage of them. Moreover, one of them was killed by Miss C. We don't dare to claim credit. The four swordsmen giggled. Everyone, what do you think of this flood dragon skin? Yan Chuan looked at the complete corpse of the flood dragon and asked with a smile. Sure, this is a dragon scale. Even the worst dragon scale is still a dragon scale, a top-grade material. The great swordsman laughed. Yan Chuan smiled and said, how about this? The flood dragon's skin belongs to you. As for the snake kings you killed, give them to me. Ah. You don't want the dragon scale? Zhu Jiansheng was surprised. What do you think? Yan Chuan continued to laugh. Then we won't stand on ceremony. The 7 swordsmen said excitedly. But you're at a disadvantage. It's easy to find a snake king, but it's hard to find a flood dragon. Zhu Jiansheng frowned. If you feel embarrassed, my subordinates are injured. Help me heal their injuries. That's enough. Yan Chuan shook his head. That's easy. We can help them heal by transferring their spiritual essence. The great swordsman immediately promised. Also, can we rest for a while and go to the Day sect after a few days? Why? I want to rest here. Yan Chuan said solemnly. Okay, no problem. It's a small matter. The 8 people agreed. Well, in that case, you can go and divide the flood dragon's skin. I still have use for the meat. Yan Chuan laughed. Okay. The 8 people rubbed their palms together excitedly. Dragon scales, these are dragon scales. The 8 of them went to skin the flood dragon. Yan Chuan looked at Hu Guang beside him and said, pass down my order. Everyone in the Genie army is above LV9 of the power realm. By the time we finish eating the snake meat, I want everyone to reach the complete stage of the power realm. Yes. Hu Guang said excitedly. Remember, those who can pass the heavenly tribulation, don't do it. My king, don't worry. I'll pass down the order now. Hu Guang said excitedly. Chapter 228. Transin Yan Chuan. Beside the Black Dragon Pool, the Embroidered E army was stationed around. A large number of Embroidered E army members were sitting cross-legged and practicing. Enjoying the demonic beast meat allowed the Embroidered E army's cultivation to improve rapidly. King, this is dragon meat. Lu Jin respectfully served Yan Chuan a plate of good meat. Have you prepared it for Miss C? Yan Chuan asked in a low voice. Miss C said she didn't want to eat it, so she gave it all to you. Lu Jin said respectfully. Got it. Lu Jin, during this period, you can eat as much as you want. Cultivate well. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. Yes. Lu Jin said with a trace of excitement. At the bottom of the Black Dragon Pool, Zhu Jiansheng, 2nd swordsman, 5th swordsman, and 6th swordsman each opened a chi wall to block the surrounding water. The 4 of them stood at the bottom of a black hole and waited patiently. Senior brother, there was no black hole here before. 2nd swordsman frowned. Maybe there was, but it was blocked by something before, so we didn't notice it. Zhu Jiansheng shook his head. The 4 of them have been in there for 6 hours, why haven't they come out yet? Why don't we go in and have a look? 2nd swordsman said again. No, let's continue to wait. Zhu Jiansheng shook his head. Okay. The 3 of them sighed slightly, while the 4 of them were waiting anxiously. Boom! 4 streams of light shot out from the hole. Boss! 2nd swordsman was surprised. They were the other 4 swordsmen. How is it? Zhu Jiansheng asked immediately. Damn, this hole is really deep, really deep. 3rd swordsman suddenly cursed. Oh? Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. We haven't reached the end. This hole should lead to a very, very far place. Great Swordsman smiled bitterly. What? You've been in the cave for 6 hours, and you still haven't reached the bottom? The second swordsman was surprised. Yes, that's right. Also, according to our analysis, the cave should be connected to the Mountain of Windy Demons. It should be connected to a deep pool on the other side of the Mountain of Windy Demons. The flood dragon came from the Mountain of Windy Demons, the swordsman said solemnly. Demon Wind Mountain Range? Zhu Jiansheng frowned as he asked. That's the territory of the demonic beasts, and cultivators generally don't dare to step into it. Even if the Serpent Kings and Serpent Kings aren't at the top of the hierarchy, they're at least at the middle level of the demonic beasts. However, this place is the world of cultivators, and they can be killed by cultivators at any time. Why did they flee from the Demon Wind Mountain Range? Could something have happened to the Demon Wind Mountain Range? The great swordsman frowned. I can't be sure, but it's very unusual. Our Day sect is located at the edge of the mountain range of the Demon Wind Mountain, so we have to be cautious. We must report this to the sect leader immediately. Zhu Jiansheng said in a deep voice. How about this? We'll stay here and look after Yan Chuan. Old 7, you go back to the sect and quickly report to the sect leader. The great swordsman thought for a moment and said. Okay. As they spoke, they floated toward the surface of the lake. Bang! They rushed out of the lake. One of them shot toward the north while the other 7 flew toward the shore. On the shore, Miss C was sitting alone at a stone table, drinking wine. When she saw them coming out from the bottom of the lake, she immediately shouted, "The 7 of you, come here." Ha! Zhu Jiansheng and the others were shocked. The 7 of them did not dare to resist. With a trace of fear, they flew 20 feet away from ZZ and did not dare to approach her. Have you investigated the bottom of the lake? What's the situation? ZZ asked. Zhu Jiansheng and the others did not dare to hide anything and immediately told her everything. Demon Wind Mountain Range? ZZ frowned slightly. Does Miss Z know anything about it? Zhu Jiansheng asked curiously. Their eyes flashed with anticipation. Oh no, the king didn't bring the Jade Emperor sword up. Lu Jin's expression suddenly changed. The Jade Emperor sword was not brought up the mountain peak. Instead, it was left at the foot of the mountain by Yan Chuan. Lu Jin was about to retrieve the sword and send it up the mountain for Yan Chuan. Eunuch Lu, you don't have to send the sword. Hua Guang stopped her. Lu Jin frowned. The king taught me that the heavenly tribulation can refine the body. When I went through the heavenly tribulation, I didn't use any weapons. The king is so smart. How could he forget about weapons? He didn't bring the Jade Emperor sword up the mountain. The king must have thought about it beforehand. Hua Guang explained. Lu Jin was slightly stunned. She thought about it and nodded. All right. The Lord is going through the heavenly tribulation at the top of the mountain. Will it be a demonstration for all of you? Hua Guang thought about it and said. Oh? It's possible. It seems possible. Lu Jin nodded. At the top of the mountain, the heavenly tribulation clouds appeared in the sky and a strong wind blew. Yan Chuan stood at the top of the mountain and looked up at the sky. His eyes flashed with coldness. His long hair and robe fluttered in the wind. Yan Chuan stretched out his arms. In his palms, there were golden lights like stars. First heaven's heavenly tribulation. Come. Yan Chuan said calmly. As he spoke, Yan Chuan's face became ferocious. Roar! Yan Chuan roared fiercely at the heavenly tribulation clouds. His eyes were fierce. His muscles were tense and veins were popping out on his face. What is Yan Chuan doing? Is he provoking the heavenly tribulation clouds? The heavenly tribulation hasn't started yet. Why is he so nervous? He can't be nervous, right? What is Yan Chuan doing? Zhu Jiansheng and the others were puzzled. Boom! A bolt of heavenly tribulation clouds rushed down. Everyone fell silent and stared at it. Roar! Yan Chuan roared again. As he roared, he opened his mouth and faced the thick bolt of heavenly tribulation lightning. Boom! The heavenly tribulation lightning struck Yan Chuan's mouth. Bang! Yan Chuan's body suddenly emitted a powerful aura, causing a large amount of soil to be overturned. Yan Chuan's hair stood up and shook crazily. The soil exploded. Everyone vaguely understood what happened. He swallowed the heavenly tribulation lightning. The three swordsmen exclaimed. Swallowed? Swallowed the heavenly tribulation lightning? Are you kidding me? The 5 swordsmen were also stunned. Can the heavenly tribulation lightning be swallowed? How is that possible? The 4 swordsmen were also stunned. Even the knowledgeable Zhou Jiansheng was petrified at this moment. Many people at LV-10 of the Power Realm might not be able to survive the heavenly tribulation even with their magical weapons. If they used their physical bodies, they would be fried on the outside and tender on the inside. However, Yan Chuan was even better. He swallowed the heavenly tribulation lightning directly. How is that possible? The great swordsman was confused. ZZ had been nervous the whole time. When she saw Yan Chuan swallowing the first heavenly tribulation lightning, she panicked at first, but when she saw that Yan Chuan was fine, she was pleasantly surprised. At the foot of the mountain, Hua Guang and Lu Jin were also looking at the sky strangely. Swallowed? Hua Guang was shocked. Hua Guang, when you were going through the heavenly tribulation, how was the first heaven tribulation? Lu Jin was confused. If I were like the king, I would have been killed. Hua Guang said with a pale face. Lu Jin. Boom. Roar. The second heavenly tribulation lightning struck. Yan Chuan roared again and swallowed the second heavenly tribulation lightning. Swallowing heavenly tribulation lightning. Chapter 230. Boom. Roar. The sound of heavenly thunder and Yan Chuan's loud roar came together. Everyone suddenly realized that the sound of heavenly thunder, which used to shake people's hearts, was nothing compared to Yan Chuan's loud roar. This roar was the real thunder of heaven and earth. With a roar, he swallowed a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, Yan Chuan had already swallowed 8 bolts of lightning. That was a bolt of lightning. Zhu Jiansheng and the 5 swordsmen were still petrified. The 6 of them had never seen it before, nor had they ever heard of it before. Which vicious person dared to do this, daring to swallow heavenly lightning? That was a bolt of lightning. Once the lightning strikes you, your internal organs will explode in an instant. However, Yan Chuan in front of them had overturned everyone's understanding. He was really swallowing lightning. He was really swallowing lightning. Fierce. Too cool. I've learned something new. The group of swordsmen said in a daze. On the top of the mountain, Yan Chuan swallowed 8 bolts of lightning. A large amount of electricity flowed out from his pores. Yan Chuan's robe and long hair fluttered in the wind. Lightning surrounded him, making him look radiant. Even Yan Chuan's eyes shot out streaks of electricity. From inside to outside, the electricity spread out from Yan Chuan's body. Yan Chuan's face was still ferocious. His palms slightly formed into claws. In his palms, a large amount of electricity crackled. True dragon will, heaven swallowing poison. Yan Chuan's eyes widened. Boom! The 9th bolt of lightning struck. This time, Yan Chuan did not roar. He opened his mouth and swallowed the 9th bolt of lightning. Boom! When the 9th bolt of lightning entered his mouth, Yan Chuan's aura suddenly soared. It was several times stronger than before. The aura burst out, blasting the soil and rocks on the top of the mountain. It's over. All 9 heavenly thunders have been swallowed. Zhu Sheng let out a long sigh. Everyone was stunned. However, just as the 9 heavenly thunders were completed and the first stage of heavenly tribulation was over, Yan Chuan roared again. Roar! The roar this time was several times more majestic than the previous one. The powerful roar caused the mountain under his feet to shake violently. Even a large amount of lightning burst out from his pores. For a moment, Yan Chuan became like a ball of lightning, incomparably dazzling. Surrounded by lightning, Yan Chuan turned into a huge electromagnetic field. Buzz! The spears of the embroidered uniform army below all trembled intensely. Buzz! The powerful magnetic field attracted a large amount of metal. That wasn't the key point. The key point was that the magnetic field formed by the lightning was aimed at the sky. Facing the sky ferociously, Yan Chuan's roar did not stop. The magnetic field was facing the rolling black clouds in the sky. Rumble. Rumbling sounds came from the black clouds, as if they were resisting the magnetic force. The lightning in the black clouds was violently attracted by the electromagnetic field released by Yan Chuan. The powerful magnetic force pulled down the black clouds in the sky that were about to disperse. The tribulation clouds were being pulled down by the magnetic force. Roar! Yan Chuan's roar became louder and louder. The tribulation clouds were getting closer and closer to the ground. The surroundings of the mountain peak were filled with dark tribulation clouds that had been pulled down from the sky. What is he doing? The 4 swordsmen exclaimed. How can the tribulation clouds be pulled down? How can this be? The 3 swordsmen also exclaimed. Chapter 231. Within the dark tribulation clouds, there seemed to be a large amount of lightning flashing. While struggling, the clouds tried to break free from the magnetic field created by Yan Chuan's roar. Yan Chuan roared continuously, and the tribulation clouds got closer and closer to Yan Chuan. Roar! While roaring, Yan Chuan opened his mouth and faced the approaching tribulation clouds. The roar stopped and turned into gasps. Gasp! The gasps were usually very soft, but in Yan Chuan's mouth, they were loud. The experts who heard it felt their scalps tingling. Everyone could see clearly that the tribulation clouds were being sucked into Yan Chuan's mouth. The rolling tribulation clouds were huge. It was a huge tribulation cloud with a radius of 3 kilometers. It was being sucked into Yan Chuan's stomach bit by bit. Under the huge magnetic force, the tribulation clouds couldn't disperse. They disappeared bit by bit and were being sucked into Yan Chuan's mouth. The dark clouds above everyone's head became less and less. The original darkness gradually recovered, and everyone could see the sun. Correspondingly, more than half of the tribulation clouds were being sucked into Yan Chuan's mouth. Gasp! This was the most arrogant gasp that the swordsman and Zhu Sheng had ever heard. The huge tribulation clouds slowly entered Yan Chuan's mouth. It was like a whale swallowing water. It was very spectacular. Everyone was sure that they would never forget this scene in their lifetime. Huff! The last strand of tribulation cloud was swinging its lightning tail as it was unwillingly sucked into Yan Chuan's stomach. Yan Chuan closed his mouth, and his body emitted rumbling sounds. His pores were closed, and his body couldn't emit any more lightning. Quietly, Yan Chuan sat cross-legged again, as if he was refining the lightning and tribulation clouds in his stomach. The sky cleared up. A breeze blew across the mountain peak. Yan Chuan sat quietly in the breeze. It was a harmonious scene. However, the thousands of people around couldn't calm down as they looked at the mountain peak. Billowing waves rolled in their hearts. Motherfucker, is this a tribulation? The 3 swordsmen finally recovered and cursed. Fucking tribulation. The 4 swordsmen cursed with red eyes. Damn it. Fuck you. At this moment, the group of swordsmen could only calm down the raging waves in their hearts by cursing. Today's stimulation was too great. Not only was it exciting, but it was also a huge blow to the 6 of them. Both of them were transcending their tribulations. Why was it that when he transcended his tribulation back then, he almost died? Why was Yen Chuan so arrogant and unreasonable today? However, ZZ's eyes were filled with excitement. She clenched her fists tightly as if she was the one who had just transcended the tribulation. Huaguang, Lu Jin, and the 3,000 embroidered uniform army soldiers were trembling with excitement. At this moment, everyone finally understood what kind of powerful person their king was. No, perhaps this wasn't all that king was capable of. However, this scene alone made everyone lose all hope of competing with him. The terrifying first heavenly lightning tribulation was swallowed by Wang Yi into his stomach. Transcending the tribulation, King was truly transcending the tribulation. Yen Chuan sat on the mountain peak for 3 days and 3 nights. During these 3 days and 3 nights, no one spoke. They just waited patiently. Zhi and the 5 swordsmen seemed to have realized that they had nothing to say. At the very least, they didn't want to speak before their hearts completely calmed down. Yen Chuan finished transcending the tribulation and sat alone on the mountain peak. He looked inside his body. The tribulation clouds were swallowed. Yen Chuan's true dragons will strongly suppress the tribulation clouds. Hong! Was I hallucinating just now? Are you okay? ZZ's voice came from behind them. Zhi and the others' faces changed. They quickly jumped away and looked at ZZ with lingering fear. ZZ looked at Yen Chuan worriedly. I'm fine. If my foundation is solid, my cultivation will be faster in the future. Yen Chuan smiled. Okay. ZZ nodded and didn't ask any more questions. She glared at Zhi and the others. Zhi and the 5 swordsmen shivered and didn't dare to say anything more. Chapter 233. Beside the Black Dragon Pool. Yen Chuan was washing the Jade Emperor's sword with water. The Jade Emperor's sword had turned black again. Apparently, it had digested the dragon's chi essence and blood. The sword's spirituality has increased. Looks like you're really an evil sword, a bloodthirsty evil sword. Yen Chuan said with a smile. Buzz! The Jade Emperor's sword vibrated as if it was showing off. As he was washing the sword, Huaguang walked over. King, just now, the last brother has reached the complete realm of strength. Huaguang said excitedly. Complete realm of strength? How many people can trigger the heavenly tribulation? Yen Chuan asked as he washed the sword. Half. Then let the other half continue to eat the remaining snakes. Yen Chuan said in a low voice. Yes, but Lord, why don't you let them undergo the heavenly tribulation now? Huaguang was confused. Go to the Day sect. My father worked so hard to get it. Naturally, I have to give it to my subordinates. Yen Chuan sighed. Ah. Is the success rate higher in the Day sect? Huaguang asked in surprise. Yes. Yen Chuan nodded. Yes, this subordinate understands. Huaguang said solemnly. How's your cultivation now? Yen Chuan looked at Huaguang. 10 days ago, I successfully reached LV2 of the Essence Realm. Continue to eat the dragons and cultivate. Yen Chuan said in a low voice. Yes. Huaguang replied. Not far from the Black Dragon Pool, ZZ sat at a stone table by the lake, drinking wine alone. She inadvertently glanced at Yen Chuan who was washing the sword. Her eyes revealed a sense of tranquility that had never appeared before. Another 10 days passed. Let's go. Yen Chuan shouted. Yes. The 3,000 soldiers of the embroidered uniform army replied. The army set out once again, heading straight for the Day sect. Only a few hundred skeletons were left at the Black Dragon Pool. Day sect. In a large hall. A white-haired and white-bearded old man stood in the hall. The old man was very tall and sturdy, and his eyes shone brightly. A group of people stood on both sides of the hall, and they were all very respectful to the old man. There were 3 managers standing on both sides, a one-armed Taoist, a cold-faced Taoist nun, and a red-faced man. Behind the red-faced man stood the 6 swordsmen and the 7 swordsmen respectfully. Feng Shao stood behind the one-armed Taoist. Sect Master. The cold-faced Taoist nun frowned. Everyone looked at the white-haired, white-bearded elder. In the Day sect, there was only one person who could be called the sect leader. Sect leader Feng Tairan. Wu Hui, don't worry. I called the 3 peak masters here today to discuss this matter. Feng Tairan said in a low voice. The red-faced man spoke up as well. Sect leader, it's just as my 2 despicable disciples said. If the flood dragon is on the run, then something big must have happened in the Demon Wind Mountains. Furthermore, a large number of demon beasts have appeared in the vicinity of the Great River sect recently. Clearly, they have fled from the Demon Wind Mountains. Bufan, I've thought about your conjecture, but no one knows what happened in the Demon Wind Mountain range. Feng Tairan frowned. Perhaps Miss C knows. After all, she said she saw people from the Dazhao Holy Land and Demon Clan experts. The one-armed Taoist said after some thought. Her. Sigh, let's not disturb her. Feng Tairan sighed. Everyone fell silent. Father, why don't I go into the Demon Wind Mountain range to investigate? Feng Tianyu suddenly asked. Feng Tairan looked at his one-armed son and shook his head gently. No, the Demon Wind Mountain range is unusual. You can't go there. I'll go there myself in a few days. During this time, you guys take good care of the sect and don't offend anyone for the time being. Although the Day sect isn't afraid of trouble, we're still in a sensitive period with many eyes watching us. Chapter 234. Yes. Everyone replied. By the way, I heard that the flood dragon was really killed by Yan Chuan. Feng Tairan suddenly smiled and looked at the 2 swordsmen. Old 6, you tell us. The red-faced man, Gao Bufan, looked at Lu Jianxia and said. The 6 swordsmen walked out and nodded. Sect leader, it's true. We saw it with our own eyes. It was killed by Yan Chuan and Miss Z. What is Yan Chuan's cultivation now? The cold-faced Taoist nun Mo Wu Hui asked. At the 9th level of the strength realm. Lu Jianxia said honestly. Impossible, 9th level of the strength realm? How could he kill a peak Qijing flood dragon? Feng Shao shouted. Shut up. The one-armed Feng Tianyu said. Father, this is obviously impossible. How could Yan Chuan kill a flood dragon? Feng Shao said jealously. Maybe it's because of Miss Z. The cold-faced Taoist nun Mo Wu Hui said. Yes. Everyone nodded. No, sect leader, martial uncles, maybe you don't know, but in the mortal world, Yan Chuan had captured 2 Qijing experts. The 6 swordsmen thought for a while and said. Oh? Everyone was slightly surprised. They're the 2 disciples of King Mai. The 6 swordsmen told everyone in detail what they knew. Ha ha ha, good, Yan Tao really gave birth to a good son. Feng Tairan stroked his beard happily. Humph, he's just a little smart. Mo Wu Hui said with disdain. Martial sister, isn't it good that Yan Chuan is smart? At least senior apprentice brother Yan Tao has a successor. Gao Bufan said with a smile. Mo Wu Hui frowned and didn't say much, but there was a trace of disgust in her eyes. All right, Wu Hui, when it's time to let it go, let it go. Feng Tairan advised. Yes. Mo Wu Hui sighed. Grandpa, actually, Yan Chuan, he. Feng Shao frowned again. What's wrong? Feng Tairan asked curiously. Yan Chuan actually brought 3,000 people to the Day sect. What does he think the Day sect is? 3,000 slaves? Our Day sect only has 4,000 people, including those who went out to train. If he brings so many people with him, Won't our day sect's resources be quickly used up? Feng Xiao said indignantly. Xiao, don't be rash. Feng Tianyu glared. Father, I'm telling the truth. The resources of the day sect were accumulated by all of us. We can't give them to Yan Chuan's slaves. Feng Xiao argued. Oh? Then tell me, what should I do? Feng Tairan looked at Sun Zi with a smile. Grandpa, I think that Yan Chuan will only be allowed to bring 10 servants into the day sect. The rest will be sent back. A sect is a sect. It's completely different from a mortal kingdom. Feng Xiao said in a deep voice. Sent back? Feng Tairan laughed. That's right, Grandpa. Uncles, if you're too embarrassed to say it, then let me do it. I'll bring some third-generation disciples and send them all back. Feng Xiao volunteered. Shut up. Feng Tianyu glared. Hey! Feng Tairan stopped Feng Tianyu's scolding. Instead, he smiled at Sun Zi. Alright, since that's the case, you can try. However, you have to do it in your own name. We won't interfere. How about it? Feng Tairan smiled. Yes. Grandpa, don't worry. Thank you, Grandpa. Feng Xiao said happily. After being humiliated by Yan Chuan last time, Feng Xiao naturally wanted to get back at him now that he was in his own territory. However, his father didn't allow it. Now that his grandfather allowed it, Feng Xiao was naturally excited. Chapter 235. If you want to find a third-generation disciple, then go. Remember, do it in your own name. Feng Tairan smiled. Yes, grandfather, don't worry. Feng Xiao said excitedly. With that, Feng Xiao rushed out of the hall. Looking at his son's back, Feng Tianyu frowned. Father, Xiao, doesn't know any better. Why did you indulge Xiao, this? Feng Tianyu was confused. Feng Tairan shook his head. I didn't indulge him. I just want Xiao, to suffer. Xiao's growth has been too smooth, so he's a little arrogant. I need to make him suffer and wake him up to his own shortcomings. Yan Chuan, if what you said is true, Xiao's tricks won't be able to stop Yan Chuan. Moreover, I want to see if my grand disciple is the same as his father. Feng Tairan smiled. The 3,000 embroidered uniform army soldiers climbed through the forest at an extremely fast speed. 10 days later, they arrived at a large river. If we follow this river, we'll reach the day sect soon. ZZ suddenly said. That's right. It'll take at most half a day's journey. This is actually the territory of the day sect. Zhujiansheng smiled. Since that's the case, I should return to Carefree City. ZZ suddenly said. You're not going back with me? Yan Chuan looked at ZZ with a frown. No, I'm used to living in Carefree City. It's enough to send you here. ZZ shook her head. Yan Chuan looked at ZZ and was silent for a while. Alright, if there's anything, inform me immediately. Perhaps in a few days, I'll go to Carefree City to take a look. I'll visit you then. ZZ smiled slightly. 5 swordsmen, can I trouble you with something? Yan Chuan suddenly looked at the 5 swordsmen. Oh? What is it? The 5 swordsmen were puzzled. The day sect is in front of us. I don't need protection. Zhujiansheng can lead the way. I would like to invite the 5 of you to escort ZZ to Carefree City. Yan Chuan said solemnly. I don't need anyone to send me off. ZZ shook her head. That's right. Who would dare to offend her? The 3 swordsmen also felt strange. However, Yan Chuan shook his head and said, I'll have to trouble the 5 of you. Yan Chuan will remember this favor. The 5 of them looked at each other. Finally, the great swordsman said, all right. All right. The 5 of them nodded. Although he was afraid of ZZ, it was fine as long as he stayed 20 feet away from ZZ. I really don't need it. ZZ said again. I don't feel at ease leaving you alone. Yan Chuan rejected ZZ's excuse. After a moment of silence, ZZ softly said, "Oh." She didn't say anything else. Beside the river, Yan Chuan watched ZZ leave. All right, let's go. Zhu Jiansheng looked at Yan Chuan and smiled. Yan Chuan smiled and said, Zhu Jiansheng, I've troubled you these days. Don't mention it. Zhu Jiansheng immediately smiled. The army has been gone for a few days. I want to rest here for a day. We'll continue our journey tomorrow morning. Yan Chuan said. Ah. Why? If we speed up, we'll be there before dark. Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. No, I have my own plans. At the same time, there's something I need your help with. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Oh? Zhu Jiansheng was puzzled. Go back to the Day sect first and inform Feng Tairan. Help me pass a message to him. Yan Chuan's expression gradually became serious. Inform the sect leader. Zhu Jiansheng frowned and looked at Yan Chuan. This was because Yan Chuan's tone did not have a trace of respect for the sect leader. Tell him that I'll arrive at the Day sect at noon tomorrow. Ask Feng Tairan, Mo Wuhui, Gao Bufan, and Feng Tianyu to come out and receive me. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. Ah. 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 Zhu Jiansheng looked at Yan Chuan in shock. The sect leader and the 3 peak masters? Come out and receive you. Such a big show. Are you kidding me? How is this possible? Who do you think you are? Just pass my message. Yan Chuan shook his head and did not explain. Zhu Jiansheng looked at Yan Chuan in confusion. Obviously, he did not believe that the sect leader and the 3 peak masters would specially come out to receive him. However, since Yan Chuan had spoken, Zhu Jiansheng felt that there must be something fishy going on. All right, I'll pass your message. Zhu Jiansheng nodded. Chapter 236. Early the next morning. 3,000 members of the embroidered uniform army were on standby. Lu Jin took out a dragon throne from her spatial scroll. The dragon throne was fixed on a round platform. The platform was guarded by some people who could be carried by 16 members of the embroidered uniform army. My king, aren't we being too arrogant by going to the Day sect like this? Lu Jin asked worriedly. Yan Chuan shook his head gently. Don't worry. The Day sect owes me this. It's not too much to do this. On the contrary, if we don't do this, we will be looked down upon. Yes. Lu Jin said no more. Yan Chuan stepped onto the round platform, swung his robe, and sat on the dragon throne. Rise! Lu Jin shouted. Immediately, 16 members of the embroidered uniform army lifted the dragon platform. Let's go! Hua Guang shouted. Yes! 3,000 members of the embroidered uniform army followed the river to the north. Yan Chuan sat on the dragon platform and was carried in the middle of the embroidered uniform army. Yan Chuan leaned on the dragon throne and held his chin with his hand. His eyes were slightly dignified. The army slowly moved forward. 4 hours later, they saw the Day sect from afar. The Day sect was a mountain range. It was so big that they couldn't see the end of it. Clouds and mist filled the air, just like the deep mountains and ancient forests that they had come from. The only difference was that the sky was filled with bright yellow clouds. The yellow cloud was about 10 miles in radius, floating high in the sky. From the cloud, a yellow light shone down, enveloping a huge mountain down below. This was the main peak of the Day sect. Other than this main peak, there were 4 tallest mountains in 4 directions. Obviously, they were the sky, earth, Xian, and yellow peaks of the Day sect. The yellow clouds shone like a miracle. Guang, Lu Jin, and the others looked forward to it. My king, what are those yellow clouds? What are those yellow clouds? Lu Jin exclaimed. Yan Chuan looked at the yellow cloud and said indifferently, the Day sect's pond of merit. What pool? What are you talking about, Your Majesty? Lu Jin didn't understand. That's not a yellow cloud, that's the pool of merit. The power bestowed by the heavens can absorb the merits of heaven and earth and bless the Day sect. It's just the accumulation of the merits accumulated by the Day sect over the years. Yan Chuan said lightly. Merit pool? Are those all the legendary virtues that can't be seen? Then, what was the meaning of king and heavenly bestowed power? Could it be that gathering heaven and earth merit requires the permission of the heavens? Lu Jin was puzzled. That's right. Without the permission of the heavens, no matter how big, how strong, or how many people a sect has, it's still a mediocre sect. That's because they don't have the protection of the heavens and earth, they only have the permission of the heavens. Just like the Day sect, it shouldn't have been long ago. Even if it's a mediocre sect, it's still a mediocre sect. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. Mediocre sect? Lu Jin was puzzled. The sects in the world should be divided into 3 types, mediocre, superior, and mediocre. With the merits of the Day sect, it's at most a mediocre sect. The strongest are the superior sects, such as the Sacred Ground and the Dazhao Sacred Ground. The Dazhao Sacred Ground is a superior sect. Yan Chuan introduced. Ah! How do we evaluate it? Lu Jin was confused. There's no need for you or me to evaluate it. The heavens will evaluate it. The heavens have their own standards. Yan Chuan took a deep breath and said. Oh! Lu Jin was puzzled. Clearly, she didn't understand it completely. You'll understand in the future. Yan Chuan smiled. Then, Your Majesty, how do we obtain the authorization of the heavens? How does the heavens authorize it? Guang asked curiously. Chapter 237. Have you heard of the Heavenly Bestowment Conference? Yan Chuan asked. Yes, I have. Mr. Monroe and Zhu Jiansheng mentioned that the old emperor shone brightly at the Heavenly Bestowment Conference. Guang said doubtfully. The Heavenly Bestowment Conference should be a grand event authorized by the heavens. And from what Wen Ruo and Zhu Jiansheng said, it should be my father who fought for this authorization. The Day sect was forced to become a lower sect because of my father, Yen Tao. Yan Chuan said with a gloomy expression. The old emperor? Lu Jin's eyes flashed with surprise. Now you know why I have to be so high profile. Yan Chuan said with a smile. This is the foundation of the old emperor, so it's natural for the king to be high profile. But the old emperor is no longer here, and the other people in the Day sect may not be loyal to the king. Aren't you afraid that the king's high profile will cause disgust among the inner disciples? After all, we still have to enter the Day sect. Guang said in confusion. Yan Chuan shook his head gently. You still don't understand. Think about it again. Now that we have entered the Day sect and settled down, you will tell me why I have to be so high profile. Yan Chuan said lightly. Yes. I will do my best to not disappoint the king. Guang said with a serious expression. Let's continue. After that, Yan Chuan said no more. The army slowly moved toward the Day sect. Day sect, the main peak under the illumination of the Pool of Merit. Halfway up the main peak was a huge palace. The Great River Hall. The Great River Hall was the main hall of the Day sect, where the sect leader discussed matters. Several figures stood on a high platform in front of the Great River Hall. The 6 swordsmen, the 7 swordsmen, and Zhu Jiansheng stood respectfully at the back. The leader of the Day sect, Feng Tairan, was at the front. Behind Feng Tairan were Earth Peak Lord Imo Wu Hui, Black Peak Lord Feng Tianyu, and Yellow Peak Lord Gao Bufan. The 7 of them stood on the high platform and looked at the distant south of the Day sect, where the embroidered uniform army was slowly approaching. Sect Master, that's what Yen Chuan said. He asked the sect master and the 3 peak masters to go down the mountain to welcome him. Zhu Jiansheng said, his face twitching. Not only Zhu Jiansheng, even the 6 and 7 swordsmen looked at each other in dismay. This Yen Chuan really thought too highly of himself. The sect leader and the peak masters of the 3 peaks were welcomingly moved with the grandest ceremony on behalf of the entire Day sect. It seemed that when people from the upper sects came, they didn't need to use this kind of etiquette. Humph, ignorant brat, arrogant. Mo Wu Hui glared at him. Feng Tianyu and Gao Bufan also frowned. Feng Tairan revealed a strange smile and said, interesting. It's only been 8 years, but his mind has matured to this extent. Father? Feng Tianyu looked at Feng Tairan doubtfully. Feng Tairan shook his head gently and said, let's wait and see. Yes. The 3 peak masters nodded at the same time. The leaders of the Day sect looked at the 3,000 troops slowly approaching from afar. Inside the Day sect, there were mountains everywhere. Did you know? Yen Chuan is back today. The son of the previous sect master. Humph, that little bastard is back. Not only is he back, I heard that he brought 3,000 slaves with him. 3,000? What a joke, he's crazy. 3,000 people entering the Day sect? Did the sect master allow this? They're about to enter the sect. I heard that Feng Shao of the Black Peak brought a group of people to stop them. What? Feng Shao? The grandson of the sect master? Let's go and take a look. Chapter 238. It was the busiest day of the Day sect. The news of Yen Chuan's imminent arrival spread like wildfire. A large number of Day sect disciples rushed to watch the arrival of the army. Black Peak, in a palace halfway up the mountain. A black-robed man stood quietly on a stone platform with a thin sword hanging from his waist. The black-robed man held the thin sword with one hand and looked solemnly outside the Day sect, looking at the smoke and dust stirred up by the army of 3,000 in the distance. Eldest senior brother. 2 men came from behind the black-robed man. The eldest senior brother was the one who was put down by Yen Chuan with Feng Shao, Jiang Nan. The 2 men behind Jiang Nan were also poisoned by Yen Chuan that day. Eldest senior brother, Yen Chuan is about to enter the sect. Previously, Feng Shao, martial uncle Feng Shao invited us to stop him. We didn't go. One of them said. It's best that you didn't go. Jiang Nan said lightly. Eldest senior brother, are we just going to let go of the humiliation of that day? The man frowned. The sect leader won't refuse Yen Chuan. Even if Feng Shao stops Yen Chuan, the sect leader will let him in. If we go now, we'll only make a fool of ourselves. We'll talk about the humiliation of the past in the future. Jiang Nan said in a low voice. Yes, we'll listen to eldest senior brother. The 2 men nodded. The 3 of them were silent for a while, quietly looking outside the mountain gate in the distance. Sitting lazily on the dragon platform, Yen Chuan held his chin and looked at the approaching Day sect's mountain gate. At the mountain gate, there was a huge stone tablet with the words Day sect written forcefully on it. There was a faint fog all around, but it was already noon. The fog could only mean one thing. The Day sect had a protective mountain array that hadn't been activated yet. Vaguely, Yen Chuan could see that the inside of the Day sect was crowded with people. Obviously, many people were paying attention to his group. At this moment, there were 200 cultivators at the entrance of the mountain. All of them were ready to fight, and their expressions were filled with hostility. Among them, there were 10 that Yen Chuan recognized. They were the people who had been killed by Yen Chuan's poisonous smoke back then. Their leader was the grandson of the sect master, Feng Shao, whose trachea was choked by a grape. Yen Chuan's lips curled into a faint smile. Stop right there. Feng Shao suddenly shouted. Holding a sword, Feng Xiao stepped in front of the 200 cultivators and coldly stared at Yan Chuan, who was on the dragon platform. The army paused, and Yan Chuan looked at Feng Xiao. What? Didn't you hear Zhujiansheng's words? Did the Dai sect only send you to welcome me? Yan Chuan asked indifferently. Bah! I welcome you. In your dreams. Feng Xiao berated. Since you're not, then don't block the way. Yan Chuan said indifferently. Block the way? So what if we block your way? Yan Chuan, listen to me. Grandfather will let you enter the Dai sect out of pity. Don't be ungrateful. Feng Xiao shouted. Oh? How did I not know what's good for me? Yan Chuan said indifferently. What's the meaning of bringing so many people? You listen to me. I'll allow you to bring at most 3 slaves into the Dai sect. The rest of you, scram. Feng Xiao shouted. Is this Feng Tyrant's idea? Yan Chuan asked in a deep voice. No, it's my idea. Feng Xiao immediately shouted. So, the Dai sect master has changed again? You, Feng Xiao, are the new sect master. Yan Chuan smiled. You? Yan Chuan, as long as I'm here today, you can forget about entering the Dai sect. Feng Xiao said anxiously. Yan Chuan looked at the peaks of the Dai sect surrounded by clouds and smiled. Hua Guang. Yan Chuan said indifferently. Here. The First Legion will open the way. Kill anyone who dares to block the way. Yan Chuan shouted. Yes. Kill anyone who dares to block the way. Feng Xiao's face twitched. Chapter 239. Hua Guang. Yan Chuan said indifferently. Present. The First Legion will lead the way. Anyone who dares to block the way will be killed. Yan Chuan shouted. Yes. Anyone who dared to block the road would be killed. Feng Xiao's face twitched. Square formation. Hua Guang shouted. Roar. The army of 3,000 immediately formed a military formation, protecting Yan Chuan in the center as the army marched forward. Boom. 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 Their neat footsteps revealed the ferocity of the battlefield. Stop right there. Feng Xiao shouted. Hua Guang's eyes widened as he shouted, target, 100 feet ahead. Ka 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 ka. At the front of the phalanx, 600 shooting sun arrows were loaded. Their target was Feng Xiao's group. The faces of the Dai sect disciples suddenly changed. Xing! 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 They quickly pulled out their swords and magic treasures and stared at the group of cultivators before them in shock. Mortal! Had these mortals gone mad? How dare you attack us? Courting death! What an idiot! Everyone's expression was unsightly. Release! Hua Guang ordered. Bam! 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 The 600 shooting sun arrows immediately turned into 600 streams of light and shot towards the 200 Dai sect disciples. Ah! Bastard! Everyone's expression changed. Boom! Some people quickly jumped away, while others used their magic treasures to block the incoming swords. Boom! The small hill where Feng Xiao was originally located was completely destroyed by the 600 shooting sun arrows. Out of the 200 elite realms, 4 or 5 of them were grazed by the shooting sun arrows. None of them had expected that this group of mortals would dare to attack them in their own territory. You're courting death. A Xiuzhe quickly raised a large blade and charged towards the army from the side. Release! Boom! 10 of the embroidered uniformed soldiers stared at the Xiuzhe and quickly released 5 shooting sun arrows. Boom! The Xiuzhe was knocked away by the power of the shooting sun arrow, but it was not over yet. There were 10 people staring at him, but only 5 arrows were shot. The other 5 had not shot before, and only released them now. Boom! 5 streaks of flowing light shot over. The Shouja had used up all his strength, and before he could form a new one, he instantly showed a terrified expression. Dang dang dang! 3 Shouja quickly rushed over to help him block the 5 fatal streaks of light. Crack! Crack! However, with the participation of these 3 people, the embroidered army spontaneously aimed another 30 sun shooting bows at them. Bam! 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 Under the suppression of the rain of arrows, the group of Shouja immediately became disheveled. When the battle started, almost all of the 200 Shouja charged forward. No one expected Yan Chuan to make a move, and even more so, they didn't expect him to make a move so quickly. Moreover, this group of mortals actually had a cultivator's magical treasure, and could suppress a dignified expert like himself. Bam! 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 The army was well trained. In the blink of an eye, they divided up the work. One squad leader kept an eye on one Shouja, and the 200 Shouja were suppressed in the blink of an eye. The group of Shouja fled in all directions. However, before the shooting sun arrows, they could not hide. They jumped up and down, as if they were sent flying by a group of mortals. Amidst the billowing dust, the cries of Shouja and the figures sent flying could be heard everywhere. The scene was very disharmonious. Inside the Daith sect, countless pairs of eyes showed confusion. Mortals? These are mortals? Chapter 240. Am I seeing things? Those elite realms of the Black Peak were bullied by a group of mortals. On the Black Peak, Jiang Nan grabbed his sword hilt, his eyes gloomy. Eldest senior brother is wise. If we had agreed with Feng Shao, we would be the ones losing face now. Someone behind him said. Yeah, how did this group of mortals improve their fighting strength so quickly? Yan Chuan. Jiang Nan squinted his eyes, his tone extremely heavy. On the square in front of the Great River Hall, sect leader Feng Tairan led a group of people and looked down. Sect leader, as I said earlier, this group of mortals is extremely strong. Last time, the 200 demon snakes were killed by them. Zhu Jiansheng said worriedly. Too arrogant, Yan Chuan is too arrogant. Mo Wuhui said coldly. Feng Tairan shook his head gently and said, no. Well done. Ah. Zhu Jiansheng and the rest were confused. Feng Tairan stroked his white beard and smiled, he has Yan Tao's style. But sect leader, I am worried that the disciples are not a match for the genie army. What if? Zhu Jiansheng said worriedly. Yan Chuan did not kill them. Don't worry. Feng Tairan said with a smile. But, he said to kill. Zhu Jiansheng still did not understand. He said to kill, but there was a precondition. Anyone who dares to block the path, kill. The precondition was to block Yan Chuan's path. These third-generation disciples attacked from both sides, so the genie army left them a way out. Feng Tairan said with a smile. Ah. Zhu Jiansheng said in surprise. With such a disciple, Yan Tao can smile in the underworld. Feng Tairan suddenly sighed. Sect leader, your evaluation of Yan Chuan is too high. Can he be compared to Yan Tao? Mo Wuhui frowned. Didn't you notice? From the beginning to the end, Yan Chuan's eyelids did not even twitch. Feng Tairan said with a smile. Oh? Everyone looked over again. In the distance, cultivators flew into the air, kicking up dust and smoke from the battlefield. 2,000 embroidered uniform army soldiers suppressed the cultivators. 1,000 embroidered uniform army soldiers protected Yan Chuan as they continued their journey to the Daith sect. Yan Chuan sat on the dragon platform. He continued to lazily rest his chin on his hand, allowing the dragon platform to steadily move towards the interior of the Daith sect. Huaguang led the way. There was only one person standing in Huaguang's way, Feng Shao. Feng Shao still felt like his head was stuck. How could that be? How could Yan Chuan dare to make a move? How dare he? Feng Xiao said with an ugly expression. Ta, ta, ta. As the army drew closer, Feng Xiao's expression turned increasingly ugly as he listened to the screams of his martial nephews. Martial uncle, save me! Someone cried out. Martial uncle! As the cultivators shouted, Feng Xiao also felt very anxious. He wanted to stop this chaotic battle, but he realized how powerless he was. Yan Chuan, stop! Stop! Feng Xiao roared. Naturally, Yan Chuan would not listen to him. The army ignored him even more. They slowly advanced, getting closer and closer. Martial uncle! The shouts all around made Feng Xiao's immature mind unable to bear it. Capture the ringleader first. Yes, yes. I will control Yan Chuan. This group of mortals will not dare to make a move. Feng Xiao's eyes suddenly lit up. Xing! Feng Xiao swung his sword and charged towards Yan Chuan, who was in the middle of the army. How dare you! Hu Guang stepped forward. Feng Xiao did not care about Hu Guang's advance. He was just a mortal. What could a mortal do to him? Great river chop! Feng Xiao glared. The sword in his hand immediately drew a bright sword beam. Chapter 241. Army Destroyer. Hu Guang shouted. Boom! Hu Guang's silver aura suddenly expanded. A violent aura shot out. The ferocious army destroyer willpower directly hit Feng Xiao's willpower. Wang! Feng Xiao seemed to see a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The illusion of countless corpses suddenly appeared, and Feng Xiao's expression changed. Dang! The two weapons collided. In one exchange, Feng Xiao was sent flying by Hu Guang. Boom! Feng Xiao crashed into a huge rock. The huge rock shattered. Feng Xiao couldn't get up under this attack. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Puff! Feng Xiao's eyes were filled with disbelief. A mortal? He was beaten up like this by a mortal. This blow was too big. It wasn't just a physical blow. It was more of a mental blow. He was defeated by a mortal. Was he really a good-for-nothing? Feng Xiao, who was mentally hurt, glanced at Yan Chuan, who was on the dragon platform. He happened to see Yan Chuan's gaze. Yan Chuan looked at Feng Xiao and revealed a faint smile. However, in Feng Xiao's eyes, this smile was like a slap to his face. His previous glamour had been beaten to a pulp. When he was young, he was bullied by Yan Chuan. A year ago, he was bullied by Yan Chuan. Now, he was bullied by Yan Chuan. Was he really so useless? Feng Xiao burst into tears as he felt wronged. Yan Chuan smiled faintly. He didn't mock or look down on Feng Xiao, he just found it interesting. Although Feng Xiao was a dandy, arrogant, and immature, at the very least he wasn't too shrewd. At the very least, he lived a very realistic life. Of course, it was just a smile. The army continued to advance into the Day sect. Yan Chuan turned his gaze to the main peak again. The fighting around them gradually stopped. More than 200 elite realm warriors were in a sorry state. They were injured and lying on the ground. Looking at the embroidered army gradually entering the Day sect, they all had complicated expressions. After this wave of attacks, there were no more obstacles. Even when they arrived at the mountain gate, there was only a group of onlookers. No one stepped forward to stop them. Tap, 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 the army marched into the interior of the Day sect in an orderly fashion. They followed the main road and headed toward the main peak. More and more disciples gathered around. The embroidered uniform army continued to do as they pleased. Not long after, the army arrived at the foot of the main peak. Stop! Hu Guang ordered. At the foot of the main peak, the group of mountain guards revealed confused expressions, not knowing what to do. Yan Chuan sat on the dragon platform and looked up at the mountain peak. Your Majesty, do you want to go up the mountain? Hua Guang asked. Yan Chuan coldly looked at the mountain and shook his head. No need. Prepare the troops and wait. Understood. Hua Guang replied. The army slowly stood behind the dragon platform. Yan Chuan sat on the dragon platform and waited quietly. On the main peak, in front of the great river hall, Feng Tianyu's expression was complicated. His son actually lost to the man with the spear in a single exchange? Father. He. Feng Tianyu said with an ugly expression. Life has to go through stages. After today, will definitely understand. Don't worry. This is for his own good. Don't spoil him too much. Feng Tairan shook his head. Sect Master, Yan Chuan stopped at the foot of the mountain. What should we do now? Gao Bufan asked doubtfully. He is still sitting on the dragon platform. How arrogant. Mo Wuhui said unhappily. Sect Master, why don't I go down and bring Yan Chuan up? Zhu Jiansheng asked kindly. He hoped to ease Yan Chuan's awkward attitude. No need. Since he is already here, the few of us will go down to welcome him. Feng Tairan said with a smile. Ah. Zhu Jiansheng looked at Feng Tairan in surprise. Go down together? Are we really going to welcome him together? Chapter 242. Yan Chuan sat lazily on the dragon platform, allowing the Day sect disciples to point at him. He continued to stare coldly at the main peak. The surroundings gradually quieted down. Feng Shao walked into the Day sect with his injuries. Jiang Nan also walked down from the Black Peak. The Qi and Essence State disciples of the Day sect gradually surrounded Yan Chuan's army. Their expressions were complicated. Yan Chuan. It was a name that made everyone confused. The son of the previous sect master would return one day, but no one expected him to return so arrogantly. Was he trying to join the Day sect? Everyone was confused. They had never seen such an arrogant disciple. It was as if the Day sect wanted to worship him. While the Day sect disciples were confused, a white cloud slowly descended from the main peak. Is that the sect master? Ah! The three peak masters. Why are they here together? Looks like Yan Chuan is in trouble. Yeah, I wonder how the sect master will teach this kid a lesson. All the disciples of the Great River sect stared at him curiously. Feng Shao clutched his chest that was injured by Hua Guang. His expression was gloomy. Jiang Nan squinted his eyes. Feng Tairan led the crowd and slowly descended. Yan Chuan ignored the others. He stared at the white cloud and the crowd on it. When Yan Chuan saw that everyone had landed, the graveness that he had been hiding in his eyes slowly disappeared. Phew! The white cloud dispersed and the crowd landed in front of the embroidered uniform army. Greetings, Sect Master. Greetings, Peak Masters. Greetings, Sect Master. The Day sect disciples greeted respectfully. Yan Chuan waved his hand gently. Lu Ji nodded and quickly ordered the embroidered uniform army to lower the dragon platform. When the dragon platform landed, Yan Chuan stood up gently. With the Jade Emperor sword on his back, he slowly walked forward. The embroidered uniform guards opened up a path for Yan Chuan. The breeze gently blew Yan Chuan's long robe. Yan Chuan's expression gradually turned serious as he walked towards Feng Tairan. Feng Tairan also stared at Yan Chuan. Yan Chuan slowly walked closer before stopping. Feng Tairan. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Audacious. Is the name of the sect master something you can call? Mo Wuhui glared at him. Yan Chuan, sect master is your father's master. You should call him Grandmaster. Gao Bufan said with a smile. Grandmaster? Yan Chuan shook his head and sneered. Yan Chuan's tone was full of sarcasm, so much so that all the Day sect disciples around him could hear it. Everyone glared at Yan Chuan. Do you think I'm not qualified? Feng Tairan frowned. My father, the former sect master of the Day sect, was forced to die in front of everyone. What are you doing, Feng Tairan? What are the people of the Day sect doing? He was the sect master, a sect master. How could you just watch him be forced to die? Do you think you can be my grandmaster? Yan Chuan shook his head. Humph, Yan Tao asked for it. Mo Wu Hui shouted. Wu Hui. Feng Tairan interrupted Mo Wu Hui's words. Sect master? Mo Wu Hui frowned. Yan Chuan is right. A sect master was forced to die, and his disciple was forced to die in front of me. I am indeed not qualified to be Yan Tao's master. This is the weakness of the Day sect. Feng Tairan shook his head. Yan Chuan stared at Feng Tairan. He took a deep breath, but his face was inexplicably relaxed. You didn't have to wait for my father's death, but you were responsible for it. Although I wasn't there, I can guess why my father was forced to die in the Day sect, and not somewhere else. To be able to force my father to die, and make the entire Day sect helpless, it must be a strong person that the Day sect cannot provoke. My father protected the Day sect with his life. This shows that my father loved the Day sect, and he must have respected you. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Chapter 243. Everyone was silent for a while. My father respects you, and you don't have to break your master-disciple relationship because of me. However, from my point of view, even though you are my father's master, I will not recognize you as my ancestor. You are you, and I am me. I came to the Day sect only to inherit what my father left behind. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Hearing Yan Chuan's words, Feng Tairan's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. If Yan Tao knew in the underworld, he would definitely be pleased with you. Feng Tairan laughed. Everyone was at a loss, unable to understand Feng Tairan's mentality. Yan Chuan scolded you, and you actually laughed? So happy? Of course, I came today to inherit Heaven Peak, become the Peak Master of Heaven Peak, and take back my father's things. Yan Chuan laughed. Yan Chuan's laughter also stunned many cultivators. They also couldn't understand Yan Chuan. Just a moment ago, he had a deep hatred, but in the blink of an eye, he laughed. What did he mean? Only Feng Tairan's eyes flickered as he looked solemnly at Yan Chuan, as if he was looking at a treasure. Are you sure you want to inherit Heaven Peak? Feng Tairan confirmed again. Isn't this what you want? Yan Chuan laughed. Feng Tairan let out a long sigh. At this moment, he was sure that Yan Chuan had accepted the Day sect because of his father's love for the sect. There was no resistance. The inheritance of a sect not only required experts, but also disciples who accepted the sect. Otherwise, once a disaster struck, they would all go their separate ways. Rather than accepting 10 geniuses with uncertain temperament, it was better to accept one mediocre person who was loyal to the sect. At least, the sect could be passed down in any storm. Welcome back. Feng Tairan laughed. Your calmness made me understand that my father's death back then wasn't in vain. Yan Chuan let out a long sigh and laughed. Ha ha ha. Feng Tairan laughed. But Yan Chuan could hear the bitterness in Feng Tairan's laughter. Many people did not understand the conversation between the two of them. They even felt that it was ridiculous. Feng Xiao and Jiang Nan both opened their mouths in shock. The two of them asked and answered, why did it sound so inexplicable? Take out the Tian Su and name me now. Yan Chuan said indifferently. All right. Feng Tairan replied. Sect Master. Mo Wu Hui immediately called out. Feng Tairan looked at Mo Wu Hui in confusion. Are you really going to let him be the Peak Master of Heaven Peak? What qualifications does he have? Mo Wu Hui cried out. Is it because he is Yan Chuan's son? Mo Wu Hui asked in a low voice. That's not all. Feng Tairan shook his head. Oh? Mo Wu Hui was puzzled. He is qualified to do so. Feng Tairan laughed. What qualifications? Mo Wu Hui still didn't understand. Just like back then, why did I pass the position to Yen Tao? My foresight has never been wrong. Wu Hui, don't object. Feng Tairan laughed. Mo Wu Hui's eyes narrowed. Not only Mo Wu Hui, but Gao Bufan and Feng Tianyu also looked at Yen Chuan in surprise. Yes. Mo Wu Hui nodded. But this scene, in the eyes of the group of second-generation disciples, was so inconceivable. Zhu Jiansheng said that Yen Chuan could be the peak master, but that was only in theory. There had never been a peak master of the essence realm. In the crowd, Jiang Nan's face was ugly, and Feng Xiao's face was complicated. But the sect master and the three peak masters had agreed, and there was no way to refute. Feng Tairan stretched out his hand, and a 10 feet long yellow scroll suddenly appeared in the void. Rumble. The pool of merit in the sky suddenly churned, as if it was responding to the scroll. Chapter 244. On the back of the scroll, there were the words Tian Su. The two words were faintly discernible, and upon closer inspection, they seemed to be moving slowly. On the front, there were 5 columns of text. Except for the first column, there was a blood-red fingerprint at the end of each column. Day Sect, bestowed by the heavens. Sect leader, Feng Tairan. Earth Peak Lord, Mo Wu Hui. Black Peak Lord, Feng Tianyu. Yellow Peak Lord, Gao Bufan. This was the Tian Su. The Tian Su floated in the air. Feng Tairan stretched out his hand and waved at the Tian Su. Above the Tian Su, a line of small words suddenly appeared slowly. Heaven Peak Lord, Yen Chuan. A line of words appeared. Feng Tairan's forehead broke out in cold sweat, and said with some difficulty, "You do it." Yen Chuan nodded, his fingers slightly drew a line, and a trace of essence blood appeared on his fingertip. With his fingertip, he pressed below his name. Boom! The pool of merit in the sky exploded, and then, a dazzling yellow light fell from the sky and went straight into Yen Chuan's body. Yen Chuan closed his eyes and suddenly inhaled deeply, as if he was accepting the yellow light. Feng Tairan smiled, waved his hand, and the Tian Su suddenly disappeared, as if it had never been there. It was not until 10 breaths later that Yen Chuan suddenly opened his eyes. How is it? Feng Tairan smiled. Merit into the body, washing away the negative karma. Yen Chuan smiled. Feng Tairan nodded. Yen Chuan stretched out his hand, and a yellow ball of light slowly appeared in his palm. He turned his head to look at the 3,000 embroidered army soldiers. He stretched out his hand. Bang! The yellow light suddenly enlarged, like a handful of sand fog, enveloping the 3,000 embroidered army soldiers. The 3,000 embroidered army soldiers suddenly trembled. King! Why did my heart palpitate just now? Hua Guang asked in amazement. From now on, through me, you are connected to the pool of merit. Yen Chuan smiled. Connected to the pool of merit? Hua Guang was puzzled. That's right. Although you can't wash away most of your negative karma like me, at least you have a much higher chance of success in the sect than in the outside world. Because this pool of merit will protect you. Yen Chuan said with a smile. Yes. Hua Guang didn't understand, but he knew it wasn't the time to ask. Do you need me to guide you to the heavenly peak? Feng Tairan asked. There's no need for that. Zhu Jiansheng can lead the way for me. Once I've settled down, I'll come find you. Yen Chuan shook his head. All right. Feng Tairan nodded. With that, Feng Tairan waved his sleeve, and another white cloud floated up, carrying him and the 3 peak masters up the mountain. Many disciples of the Day sect looked confused, including Zhu Jiansheng, the 6 swordsmen, and the 7 swordsmen. Yan Chuan watched the four of them go up the mountain, and said to Huguang, "Do you understand what I asked you to think about earlier?" Huguang's expression changed, and he immediately said solemnly, "Yes, I understand." "Oh? Tell me." Yan Chuan looked at Huguang. King's high profile was actually to test sect leader Feng Tairan, to see if the Dai sect was worth the old emperor's sacrifice. The conversation between King and sect leader Feng Tairan just now was actually a mutual test between King and Feng Tairan. In the end, King approved of the Dai sect and stayed. Huguang thought and said, "That's right. Although the Dai sect is a lesser sect, it's still nothing in my eyes." Yan Chuan said indifferently, "King, I'm curious. If Feng Tairan didn't satisfy King just now, what would King do?" Huguang asked curiously. "Didn't satisfy me?" Yan Chuan narrowed his eyes, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Although Yan Chuan didn't say it out loud, Huguang had followed Yan Chuan for so long that he naturally understood the meaning in his eyes. If the Dai sect wasn't worth Yan Tao's sacrifice, would King destroy the Dai sect? Destroy the Dai sect? Huguang's heart was in turmoil. Chapter 245. While Yan Chuan and Huguang were whispering, Zhu Jiansheng and the rest walked over. Zhu Jiansheng, the 6 swordsmen, and the 7 swordsmen all had strange expressions on their faces. "Greetings, Peak Lord of Heavenly Peak." The 3 of them said. "Thank you for taking care of me all this time. If you need anything in the future, feel free to look for me." Yan Chuan said with a smile. "Eh?" The 3 of them were slightly stunned. At the same time, Zhu Jiansheng suddenly understood why Yan Chuan did not address him as senior brother. It turned out that he was waiting for this. "Junior brother? I will try my best to refine qi into spirit." Zhu Jiansheng said sullenly. "I'll be waiting." Yan Chuan said with a smile. "Let's go. I'll bring you to Heavenly Peak. Although no one has lived here for 7 years, it is still cleaned frequently." Zhu Jiansheng led the way. "Wait." Suddenly, a shout came from the crowd. "Eh!" Everyone turned their heads to look. A black-robed man slowly walked out from the crowd. It was the 3rd-generation senior brother, Jiang Nan. Jiang Nan held the hilt of his sword and frowned. He looked at Yan Chuan with a complicated expression. The humiliation of the past was still vivid in his mind. "Sprout?" He said he was a sprout. After returning to the sect, he cultivated day and night just to wash away the humiliation of the past. Finally, he reached the complete realm of essence and Yan Chuan came to the sect. However, in the blink of an eye, Yan Chuan became a 1st-generation disciple. How could he take revenge? The moment Feng Tairan agreed, Jiang Nan almost roared. "Jiang Nan! What do you want?" Zhu Jiansheng said with a frown. Jiang Nan was a genius. Zhu Jiansheng also knew that he would become his junior brother soon. Zhu Jiansheng did not put on airs. "I, Jiang Nan, as the 3rd-generation senior disciple, challenge the Peak Lord of Heavenly Peak. Please enlighten me." Jiang Nan said solemnly. "Hua!" Jiang Nan's words caused an uproar. "Challenge? Eldest senior brother wants to challenge Yan Chuan? Did I hear it wrong? Eldest senior brother is in the perfection of the essence state. Challenge Yan Chuan? Isn't this obvious bullying? But eldest senior brother is only a 3rd-generation disciple. Challenging a 1st-generation disciple is against the rules. Who wants Yan Chuan to be so arrogant? Eldest senior brother wants to suppress his arrogance. The challenge is right. Everyone was talking about it. Jiang Nan, pay attention to your status. You are at the peak of the essence realm, and Peak Master Tian has just joined the sect. Zhu Jiansheng said in a deep voice. That's right. Your cultivation base is much higher compared to Peak Master Tian. Is this a challenge? Asked the 6 swordsmen with a frown. No, Strength is not something that can be measured by cultivation base. A year ago, Jiang Nan was defeated by Peak Lord Tian, martial uncle can testify. Today, Jiang Nan only wishes to verify the results of a year's worth of cultivation. I beg Peak Lord Tian to grant me my wish. Jiang Nan was unyielding. Ah! A year ago, eldest senior brother lost to Yan Chuan. No way. The surrounding Dai sect disciples were all in disbelief. Among the third-generation disciples, Jiang Nan was the strongest. Although Yan Chuan was a first-generation disciple, he had just joined the sect. How could he defeat Jiang Nan? I beg Peak Master Tian to grant my wish. Jiang Nan said again. Zhu Jiansheng looked at Yan Chuan awkwardly. Yan Chuan smiled and said, I don't like this kind of competition. Ah! Some people around immediately looked at him with disdain. They thought that Yan Chuan was afraid. If you don't like to fight, then what is the sword on your back for? Jiang Nan was unyielding. Chapter 246. My Jade Emperor sword doesn't fight. It only kills. Doesn't fight, only kills. Everyone's face twitched. The Heavenly Peak Master was indeed arrogant. Jiang Nan was also depressed and was about to speak again. You are close to the second stage of the heavenly tribulation. Consolidate it properly. Don't cause trouble everywhere before transcending the tribulation and leave behind hidden dangers. You only have one life, cherish it. Yan Chuan shook his head and said lightly. Me? Cause trouble everywhere? Jiang Nan was furious. Oh, by the way, my Heavenly Peak Master will also undergo the tribulation tomorrow. It might cause a big commotion. Your tribulation will come again slowly. Yan Chuan said indifferently. As he spoke, Yan Chuan no longer paid any attention to Jiang Nan, and he looked at Zhou Jiansheng and said, Let's go. Zhu Jiansheng smiled bitterly and nodded. He led Yan Chuan's army and left. Why? Do I have to ask you for permission to undergo the tribulation? Jiang Nan said sullenly. A few of Jiang Nan's followers surrounded Yan Chuan and scolded him for a while. Feng Xiao, who was not far away, had a complicated expression as he watched the army leave. He frowned and looked at Jiang Nan, who was not far away. Martial Uncle Feng Xiao, what should we do? Are we just going to let this go? A disciple asked Feng Xiao. Humph, I must take revenge for the humiliation. I will teach Yan Chuan a lesson. However, I must strengthen myself. I was too arrogant in the past. When I become stronger, I will find Yan Chuan for revenge. Humph. Feng Xiao said coldly. Feng Xiao did not realize that he had undergone a huge change after this battle. At the very least, he was more ambitious than before. Along the way, Zhu Jiansheng, the 6 swordsmen, and the 7 swordsmen looked at Yan Chuan from time to time. Martial Uncle Yan. Zhu Jiansheng's face twitched. What? Martial Uncle Yan, why didn't you fight just now? As long as you enter the state of blood, you should be able to use this to establish your prestige. The disciples in the sect will not dare to underestimate you. Ha ha ha, is there a need? Moreover, fighting with Jiang Nan really doesn't interest me. My sword likes to kill more. Yan Chuan smiled. Okay. Zhu Jiansheng and the others thought that Yan Chuan was pretending, but they couldn't expose him. They could only nod their heads with black lines on their faces. It didn't take long for them to arrive at Sky Peak. Sky Peak was located in the northwest of the Dai sect. It was the main peak, surrounded by many smaller peaks. The mountainside of the heavenly peak had also been leveled, and a large number of palaces had been built. Everyone arrived at the waist of the mountain and looked at the main hall. King of Hell's Palace. Hua Guang read out the palace's name. This is the name that Martial Uncle Yan Tao changed back then. The Peak Lord can make a name for it. Martial Uncle Yan, what name do you want it to be? Zhu Jiansheng explained. King of Hell's Palace. Not bad, I like this name. Let's do it. Yan Chuan smiled. Yes. Everyone nodded. Sky Peak, King of Hell's Palace. Hu Guang, let the soldiers find a place to rest for the night. Tomorrow morning, prepare for the tribulation. Yan Chuan said. Yes. Hu Guang replied. The next morning. The sky had just brightened. The valley below Sky Peak was already filled with people. The 3,000 soldiers looked at Yan Chuan, who was standing at the front in high spirits. Zhu Jiansheng, the 6 swordsmen, and the 7 swordsmen were all looking at him expectantly. Lu Jin, you start first. Trigger the tribulation. Yan Chuan ordered. Yes. Lu Jin nodded. Rumble. Suddenly, rumbling sounds came from the interior of the Day sect. The disciples who woke up early all looked at the Sky Peak in the northwest. At the Black Peak, Jiang Nan also saw the dark clouds in the distance. Chapter 247. First Tribulation Cloud. Jiang Nan said disdainfully. 2 people stood beside Jiang Nan. Why? This Yan Chuan is too domineering. He wants to undergo tribulation. Why can't he let senior brother undergo tribulation too? One of Jiang Nan's followers said unhappily. Yeah, he's only going through the first tribulation. Senior brother is going through the second tribulation. The other person said. The more they talked, the uglier Jiang Nan's face became. Yeah, why should I listen to you? Looking at the tribulation cloud in the distance, Jiang Nan felt more and more uncomfortable. Protect me later. I'm going to undergo tribulation. Jiang Nan said with a gloomy face. Ah. Senior brother, you're going to fight with Yan Chuan? What do you mean fight? How can his first tribulation compare to senior brother's second tribulation? Senior brother is going to teach Yan Chuan a lesson. Don't be so arrogant. Yes, yes. He must at least crush Yan Chuan in terms of momentum. Let's see how arrogant he can be in the future. At the heavenly peak. The moment Lu Jin attracted the tribulation, the merit pool on the main peak suddenly stirred. Then, rays of yellow light rushed toward Lu Jin and enveloped Lu Jin. Rumble. The tribulation cloud was getting lower and lower. The pressure of the heavens caused smoke and dust to rise from below. King, was that the merit that poured into Lu Jin's body? Hu Guang asked curiously. That's right. When merit enters the body, it will reduce the damage of the tribulation. The success rate will be greatly increased. Yan Chuan explained. So it's like wearing a suit of armor? You can say that. Yan Chuan smiled. Just as Lu Jin was feeling the tribulation, a series of roars came from the southeast. Rumble. Dark clouds covered the southeast, and thunder and lightning kept roaring. The tribulation cloud was getting bigger and bigger. In the blink of an eye, it was 10,000 feet high. The thunder was much louder than Lu Jin's. Its momentum was more than 10 times that of Lu Jin's tribulation cloud. Black Peak also has people transcending tribulation. Zhu Jiansheng said in surprise. The 6 swordsmen frowned and said, the second heavenly thunder tribulation, is it Jiang Nan? Yan Chuan coldly glanced in the southwest direction. Don't worry about him. Let's continue. Begin. Yan Chuan shouted. Yes. The 3,000 soldiers shouted in unison. Boom. The 3,000 soldiers unleashed their auras at almost the same time. For a moment, a strong gale swept through the valley, sending sand and stones flying. Rumble. The tribulation clouds above the heaven peak suddenly expanded once more. And at the Black Peak, Jiang Nan revealed a proud smile as he looked at the tribulation clouds that were 10 times larger than Tianfeng's. It was as if he could finally release the resentment he had accumulated over the past year. Boom, 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 boom. Within the thunderclouds, 9 bolts of heavenly lightning struck down at the same time, heading straight for Jiang Nan. Roar! Jiang Nan's long sword slashed towards the 9 heavenly thunders in the sky. Boom! The lightning and sword collided, causing lightning to splatter in all directions. The entire valley was filled with electric arcs, and the entire valley was extremely dazzling. After the first round of lightning, Jiang Nan's hair was only a little messy. It was a very successful first strike. Jiang Nan glanced at the heaven peak. Rumble. The heavenly thunder tribulation had yet to begin, but the original tribulation clouds suddenly expanded. They were getting bigger and bigger. What's going on? Jiang Nan rubbed his eyes and asked in disbelief. The protector at the side shouted, "Senior brother, I don't know either. The tribulation clouds above the heaven peak are getting bigger and bigger. Why are they so big?" Rumble. The tribulation clouds above the heaven peak continued to expand. In the blink of an eye, it went from 1,000 feet to 100,000 feet. From 100,000 feet to 100,000 feet. The rolling tribulation clouds let out heavy thunderous roars, causing the entire day sect to be unable to breathe. Countless disciples were petrified as they looked at the heaven peak. The first heavenly tribulation clouds are so big? What kind of joke is this? Damn it, is this the first heavenly tribulation clouds? Am I blind? Chapter 248. Rumble. The tribulation clouds rumbled and weighed heavily on the hearts of all the day sect disciples. The first tribulation cloud of the heavenly peak. The second tribulation cloud of the black peak. Logically speaking, the second tribulation cloud of the heavenly peak should be stronger than the first tribulation cloud of the heavenly peak. However, at this moment, countless disciples were staring at the first tribulation cloud of the heavenly peak. Everyone had gone through the first tribulation cloud of the heavenly peak, but they had never gone through such a grand tribulation cloud. The rumbling tribulation clouds covered the sky and the earth. Tens of thousands of thunder roared and shook the heavens and earth. On the main peak, Feng Tairan and the other 3 peak masters were also looking at the 2 tribulation clouds. First heavenly peak. 3,000 people going through the tribulation together. This is a grand occasion throughout the ages. Gao Bufan said with a smile. What grand occasion? It's only the first heavenly peak. Mo Wuhui said sarcastically. Your disciple is right. Yen Chuan will cause trouble wherever he goes. Just like Yen Tao back then. Feng Tairan laughed. Same. Humph. Mo Wuhui snorted. Feng Tairan looked at Mo Wuhui and shook his head with a bitter smile. Black Peak. Rumble, rumble. The second tribulation lightning struck again. Jiang Nan slashed towards the tribulation lightning again. At the same time, he looked at the direction of the heavenly peak with an ugly expression. The rumbling black clouds of the heavenly peak suddenly exploded. Rumble. The first tribulation lightning had begun. Rumble. 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 The heavens and earth lit up. 3,000 tribulation lightning struck simultaneously. It was as if the heavenly river was pouring down. It was an incomparably spectacular sight. Furthermore, it was not the river water that was pouring down, but lightning. Endless lightning. The lightning was rolling like a river. Hiss. All the day sect disciples sucked in a breath of cold air. When had they ever seen such a spectacular sight? Was this a tribulation? This was a baptism of lightning. This was playing with one's life. The first tribulation of the heavenly peak had the effect of the fourth heavenly peak. No, even the fourth heavenly peak was not as shocking as this. It was too much, too fast. Rumble. 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 The lightning continued to strike, as if the heavenly peak was being punished by the heavens. Xian Feng. Jiang Nan's face instantly darkened. The trace of pride from before had long since vanished. He had wanted to use the aura of the heavenly tribulation to suppress Yen Chuan, but now, it was like a slap to his face, the kind that made a crisp sound. At this moment, Jiang Nan didn't know why, but he suddenly thought of a word, overconfident. Boom, boom, boom. The second round of 9 heavenly thunders struck down. Ah! Jiang Nan vented his anger by slashing towards the sky. Boom! The lightning was dazzling. Xiao Chen chopped down the third round of heavenly lightning with a single sword strike. The sword's momentum was ferocious, and sword energy shot out in all directions. Xiao Chen could be a role model for thousands of cultivators. If it were in the past, such a stunning strike would have won the cheers of the entire hall. But now, countless Xiuzhe ignored Jiang Nan, as though he was doing something as boring as chopping wood. All of them were still looking in the direction of the heavenly peak. Jiang Nan suddenly felt bitter. Boom! With his emotions unstable, the fourth round of heavenly lightning struck down. Jiang Nan was careless and was struck by a bolt of heavenly lightning. His hair was disheveled and he was in an exceptionally sorry state. Ah! Jiang Nan roared, venting the inexplicable grievance in his heart. Last time, before he could draw his sword, Yan Chuan dealt with him. This time, it was even more embarrassing. He went up to launch a sneak attack, but Yan Chuan's tribulation clouds looked down on him. Chapter 249. It wasn't just a matter of losing face. It was more of a matter of dignity. Their dignity was trampled on again. Last time, they were trampled on. This time, they were the ones who delivered themselves to others. On Xian Peak. Feng Xiao looked at Jiang Nan below with slight sympathy. On Heavenly Peak. Yan Chuan stared at the people undergoing the tribulation. It was the 7th round. The storm-like lightning baptized the 3,000 soldiers again and again. Some of the soldiers were covered with injuries and fell to the ground as if they had no strength left. Stand up! Yan Chuan shouted. The soldiers who fell to the ground had no strength left. However, when they saw Yan Chuan's serious gaze, their hearts tightened. All of a sudden, their hearts tightened. Gritting their teeth, they slowly climbed to their feet. Even if I die, I will die standing. Damn it! The soldiers gathered their morale again. Rumble. The storm-like lightning rained down again. Roar. The 3,000 soldiers roared in unison. They resisted the lightning with their bodies and tempered their bodies with the lightning. After another round of lightning baptism, many of the soldiers had no strength left. However, the others immediately helped them up. The army wasn't scattered. It was a cohesive team. They wouldn't abandon or give up. There's still one more round. No one is allowed to embarrass the king. Someone shouted. No one is allowed. Everyone supported each other and welcomed the last round of lightning. Roar! Boom! They roared in unison and received the last round of lightning. The entire valley was filled with dazzling lightning arcs. After the 3,000 soldiers withstood the last bolt of lightning, almost all of them fell down together. Rumble! The thunderclouds in the sky slowly dispersed. Ha ha ha! Ha ha ha! Although the soldiers who fell to the ground were fried on the outside and tender on the inside, they were still breathing. Although they didn't have much strength left, they were still laughing excitedly. The tribulation clouds on Heavenly Peak all dispersed. The first heavenly tribulation had ended. This wasn't just a tribulation. It was a grand visual feast. All the disciples of the Great River sect who were staring at the tribulation were excited. Similarly, the difference in Heavenly Peak had completely aroused everyone's interest. Rumble. Heavenly tribulation on Heavenly Peak continued. The second heavenly tribulation, the 29th heavenly tribulation. There were 18 rounds in total. Only half of them were down. Every round was filled with 9 bolts of lightning, which was equally spectacular. However, thinking back to the 10,000 lightning bolts just now, almost everyone who looked at the tribulation clouds in Jiangnan had a dull feeling. Jiangnan was provoked, and the impact on his heart was enormous. His former demeanor was swept to the ground, and he was even surrounded by danger for a moment. Watching Jiangnan go through the tribulation made everyone feel sorrowful. After looking at it for a while, no one paid attention to it anymore. Rumble. Slash. A man in Jiangnan shouted in embarrassment. On the heavenly peak, Zhu Jiansheng and the rest also looked in the direction of the black peak. It's Jiangnan, but... Zhu Jiansheng said with a complicated expression. Hua Guang said bluntly, he asked for it. Yesterday, the king told him not to go through the tribulation, but he insisted on showing off. Now he's reaping what he sowed. Zhu Jiansheng and the others smiled bitterly. Yan Chuan smiled faintly and ignored him. Hua Guang. Yan Chuan shouted. Here. Stay here and take care of everyone. This tribulation was very successful. With the help of morale and merit, everyone broke through. Very good. Before I come back, I will reward everyone. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Yes. I'm going to see Feng Tairan. Wait for me. Chapter 250. Yes. Before long, in front of the great river hall, Yan Chuan and Feng Tairan stood in front of the railing, holding onto the white jade railing as they looked in the direction of the black peak. Boom! Boom! In the end, Jiangnan managed to block the 9 bolts of heavenly lightning. However, at this moment, Jiangnan's clothes were torn and his body was scorched red. After the last bolt of heavenly thunder passed out, he fell to the ground and lost consciousness. Eldest senior brother, no, martial uncle. The 2 protectors rushed over anxiously. In front of the great river hall, Feng Tairan revealed a bitter smile. That child Jiangnan shouldn't have suffered this. Is that so? Yan Chuan smiled faintly. Of course, although Jiangnan's breakthrough is very fast, I can see that his foundation is very solid. If it weren't for you this time, he wouldn't even be injured after crossing the tribulation. Feng Tairan smiled bitterly. It's not a bad thing to be competitive. If he couldn't see the situation clearly, it would be fatal. He hasn't traveled the world yet, so it's better for him to suffer in his own home than to be taught by outsiders. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Feng Tairan looked at Yan Chuan strangely. Are you really only 18 years old? What do you think? Yan Chuan laughed. You are a monster. Feng Tairan shook his head and laughed. Maybe. After being confused for so many years, it's time to wake up. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Your clarity of mind is beyond my expectations. Feng Tairan smiled bitterly. Isn't that good? Yan Chuan laughed. All right. Feng Tairan nodded. Then, Feng Tairan's expression gradually became serious. I've already sent the others away. Now, let's talk about your father. Feng Tairan said solemnly. Well, I'm listening. Yan Chuan's face also became serious. The Earth Peak's Peak Lord, Mo Wu Hui, have you met him? Feng Tairan asked. Of course I remember. It seems that he doesn't like me very much. Yan Chuan smiled. Sigh, speaking of which, don't blame her. She won't harm you. Feng Tairan smiled bitterly. Oh? Back then, if it weren't for your mother's appearance, Wu Hui would have become your father's wife. It was only after your mother's appearance that everything changed, and she... All these years, she hasn't been able to let go. Feng Tairan explained. Yan Chuan's face turned solemn. The grudge he had against Mo Wu Hui was instantly dispelled. I watched Yan Tao grow up. When I passed on the position to him, I could see that he would definitely be the hope of the Day sect in the future. Unfortunately, life makes fools of people. Feng Tairan felt a wave of regret. Yes. Yan Chuan was also silent for a while. Back then, the 100 sects came with great momentum. The other party's background was too great. At that time, in front of me, in front of the heads of the 100 sects, in front of that big shot, in front of the entire Day sect, he drew his sword and cut his own throat. Huh. Feng Tairan's eyes were moist. My father was forced to commit suicide in front of everyone? A cold light flashed in Yan Chuan's eyes. Feng Tairan looked up to the sky and let out a long sigh. Your father was a sentimental person. At that time, your mother was seriously injured and died. Your father also wanted to die. In order to protect the Dai sect, he committed suicide with your mother. Feng Tairan said sorrowfully. Where is my father buried? Yan Chuan said in a cold tone. Buried? Oh, that big shot felt that it was not enough to vent his anger. In the end, he reached out and smashed your parents' bodies into powder. There were no bones left. We could only erect a cenotaph. Feng Tairan said sadly. Bastard! Boom! In his anger, Yan Chuan smashed the railing he was holding onto. I'll take you there. Come with me. Feng Tairan said bitterly. Chapter 251. Dai Sect. Halfway up a small mountain not far from the heavenly peak. Halfway up the mountain, there was an ordinary grave. There was no tombstone and it was just sitting there alone. If one didn't clean it often, one would easily mistake it for a small mound. In front of the grave, there was some wine, fruits, and a bouquet of fresh flowers. Not far away, there was a stone table and stone stool. Feng Tairan and Yan Chuan stood in front of the small grave in silence. Many people don't know about this small grave. For the sake of Dai sect, I don't dare to let too many people know about it. I'm worried that the big shot's anger hasn't subsided. This is your parents' grave. Wu Hui has been cleaning it. Feng Tairan smiled bitterly. Peak Master Mo Wu Hui. Yan Chuan frowned. Yes, she can't let it go. I often see her coming at night and sitting on this stone stool for the whole night. Feng Tairan said bitterly. I understand. Yan Chuan nodded. Let's sit down and talk. Tao also left you something. Feng Tairan said. The two sat on the stone stool. Feng Tairan flipped his hand and took out a jade box. The jade box was covered with blood-red seals. Streams of light flashed across it, making it look extremely mysterious. Blood essence seal? Yan Chuan asked doubtfully. Yes, your father gave this to me before he killed himself. He said that only your blood can open the seal. You've heard of this seal? Feng Tairan was surprised. Yes, indeed. The person who set up this seal and the person who unsealed it must have the same bloodline. At the same time, the person who set up the seal must have dyed the seal with my blood. This seal was indeed left behind by my father. Yan Chuan nodded. Tao said that he wrote everything down and put it in this box. You'll understand when you see it. Feng Tairan said. All right. Yan Chuan nodded. Dong! At the main peak, the sound of a bell suddenly rang out. Feng Tairan looked in the direction of the main peak in surprise. What is it? The bell will only ring when something big happens in the sect. I'll go take a look. Feng Tairan stood up. Yan Chuan nodded. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Feng Tairan shot into the distance. Yan Chuan ignored him and looked at the grave mound. He frowned and looked at the jade box. He forced out a drop of blood essence and dripped it into the seal. Chi! The blood-red restriction melted like snow and soon disappeared. Taking a deep breath, Yan Chuan gently opened the jade box. There were a total of 4 items in the jade box. There was a letter, a map, a small purple token, and a yellow wooden stake that was as thick as an arm and covered in runes. Yan Chuan took out the letter first. For my son, opening the envelope, Yan Chuan took out the letter and began to read it. Son, when you see this letter, your father will definitely go to see your mother. Your mother and I are very regretful that we didn't get to see you grow up. Your mother was thinking about you even when she was about to die. Alas! Now, hundreds of sects have forced us to leave you these last words and tell you everything. Your father is called Yen Tao, your mother is called Kong Susu, the daughter of the Western Kong family. Do you see the purple token in the box? Your mother asked me to leave it for you. It's called Ask Heaven token. It's useless to tell you too much now. In the future, if you can become stronger, you should be able to find out when you go to the West. However, your mother and the Kong family have a bad relationship, very bad. You should not trust the Kong family too much. Chapter 252. Seeing this, Yen Chuan took out the purple token from the jade box. The token was octagonal, with the words, Ask, and Heaven written on it. The material was very special. Even with Yen Chuan's experience, he could not tell what it was. The Ask Heaven token was simple and did not have the slightest ripple of mana. But in Yen Chuan's eyes, it was extraordinary. Yen Tao, Kong Susu. Yen Chuan looked at the small grave not far away and sighed. Then, he continued to look at the envelope. Son, let me tell you a secret of the Yen clan. You should have heard of blood demon Yen Tao. Hair like blood. Nature like a demon. I don't know when you will be able to reach my level. But, in theory, everyone in the Yen clan has this chance. It's just that some people can trigger it, while others can't. This is a supernatural power that only belongs to the Yen clan. Do you know about supernatural powers? Our ancestor was a powerful immortal. This is a supernatural power created by the immortal. After the bloodline was passed down, some of the descendants of the immortal will inherit this supernatural power. The entire Yen clan is passed down by word of mouth. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time and could only leave a letter to tell you. I didn't bring any clan members into the cultivation world because I was worried that if it was exposed, it would lead to a disaster. I only prepared to bring some geniuses into the cultivation world. Unfortunately, I didn't meet any geniuses in these years. Of course, my son is definitely a genius. I saw Yen Shoyu's son last time and he seemed to have a natural sword bone. At that time, I knew that I was going to die, so I didn't bring him into the cultivation world. If you have the chance in the future, you can guide him to cultivate. Our bloodline's supernatural power is called supernatural power. Although I don't know what our ancestor was thinking, I still like this name. Super, it means to surpass those of the same level. Once the supernatural power is activated, within a day, one's strength will skyrocket to the point where it can surpass those of the same level. At that time, you will be very excited, extremely bloodthirsty. But don't worry, your rationality will still be there. It's just that you will be more excited. It's like quickly raising your cultivation level by one level. The power realm can be raised to the essence realm in a day. As for the level of the profound realm, it would depend on one's luck. I'm a chi refiner. During the Heaven's Gift Conference, I defeated many emptiness realm experts. According to our ancestors, there are 3 different states of super mystiques. What I experienced just now was only the first state. I haven't experienced the second or third state yet. But don't worry, these states usually only last for a day. They won't affect you. After a day, he would have to wait at least a month before he could activate it again. Make good use of it. Holding the envelope, Yen Chuan narrowed his eyes. Immortal bloodline. Super divine ability. His strength instantly skyrocketed by an entire realm. A realm. This divine ability is indeed powerful. Yen Chuan exclaimed in shock. Father, you've done well. Once this ability is known by some sinister people, our Yen clan will never have a day of peace. Yen Chuan took a deep breath. After a moment of silence, he turned his attention back to the envelope. Over the past few hundred years, I have some savings. But this time, your mother and I were forced into a corner and implicated too many people. I have given many things to my old friends as compensation. I hope you don't blame us. Chapter 253. Of course, I didn't plan to leave too much for you. My son, Yen Tao, must rely on his own hands to create a world. It's not good to leave too much for you. Work hard and take revenge for us in the future. Remember, the person who killed your mother and I was a strong man in the West. He's called Emperor Mo. He's very famous in the West. You'll definitely know him in the future. It's only right for a son to take revenge for a father. However, son, you have to do everything within your means. Before taking revenge, you must protect yourself. Your mother and I will protect you. Seeing this, Yen Chuan smiled slightly. It's only right for a son to take revenge for a father. Don't worry, one day, I will use his head to pay tribute to you. Emperor Mo. He actually calls himself emperor. Yen Chuan thought for a moment. Of course, I can't leave nothing for you. Do you see the map in the box? That's a huge mine I found. If you don't have the ability, you can slowly continue the Yen clan's bloodline with this mine. It's enough to eat for tens of thousands of years. If you can make a career out of it, you can take out this mine and use it yourself. However, you have to reach the divine realm before you can take it. Right now, you don't have the ability to protect it. After reaching the divine realm, go and take a look at this huge mine that I left for you. Haha. Mine? Yen Chuan looked at the map in the box. The map was very detailed. Although he didn't know where it was, as long as he was nearby, he should be able to find it. Okay, I'll look for it when I reach the divine realm. Yen Chuan smiled slightly and didn't care about the mine. There's also a wooden stake in the box. Do you see it? That thing isn't mine and I don't know how to use it, but it's definitely a treasure. This was left behind by an old man from the Archaic Mysteries sect before he died. You may not know about the Archaic Mysteries sect, but it's best not to provoke them. They're a sect that cultivates luck, the most mysterious place in the world. They rarely wander around. But I was lucky to meet this old man. I asked him to help me calculate your and ZZ's. The old man said that your soulless disease will definitely recover one day. It's just that he doesn't know when. Then, he helped to calculate ZZ's. In the end, he had calculated his own death. He didn't know if it was true or not. Before he died, he said that he had caused a great disaster by divining ZZ. He had gone against heaven's will and was punished by heaven, so he had to die. He didn't know if it was true or not. Old man. Looks like he's a fate usurper who cultivates fate. He divined purple and suffered a backlash from the heavens? Yen Chuan said in astonishment. He continued reading. The old man said that ZZ's life providence was Tao God's wife. In other words, from the moment she was born, she was destined to be the wife of a Tao God. I asked the old man, who is the Tao God? The old man said that the Tao God was the heavens. ZZ was born to be God's wife. If it weren't for the fact that he kept vomiting blood, he would have kicked him. The vast heavens did not have any consciousness, so how could it marry a wife? Was the old man crazy? The old man told me that it wasn't a curse on ZZ, but a heavenly curse. The heavenly curse had been with ZZ as she grew up. She was the wife of a Tao God, and she couldn't be blasphemed. Heaven wouldn't allow it. No one could. So under the heavenly curse, no one could get close. Regardless of whether they were good to her or bad to her, they would have endless bad luck. The heavenly curse would eliminate anyone who dared to touch ZZ. I'm only telling you the old man's words. Judge for yourself. After the old man finished divining ZZ, he left a few words and died. He left behind the wooden stake that he had divined. You can do as you see fit. Finally, son, if your mother and I are in heaven, we will definitely bless you. Chapter 254. Finally, son, if your mother and I are in heaven, we will definitely bless you. After reading the last sentence, Yen Chuan fell into a deep silence. Although the whole thing was about stories, one could feel a deep sense of father-son love between the lines. Yan Chuan folded the letter and gently placed it in his bosom. He remained silent for a long time. He looked at the remaining 3 items in the box: the map, the heaven-seeking token, and the yellow wooden stake. He gently closed the jade box. Standing up, Yan Chuan looked around. The Jade Emperor's sword in his hand slashed at a huge rock. Clang! 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 After a series of slashes, a large tombstone was carved out. Boom! The tombstone was inserted in front of the small grave. Clang! Clang! The Jade Emperor's sword carved on the tombstone. The tomb of my late father Yen Tao and mother Kong Su Su. Erected by Yan Chuan. A tombstone was carved in an instant. Looking at the tombstone, Yan Chuan took a deep breath and said, "In this life, you are my parents. This is fate. Yan Chuan will not let you down." After that, Yan Chuan bowed deeply to the grave for a while. Then, he carried the jade box and walked towards Heaven Peak. Not long after Yan Chuan left, a white figure landed in front of the grave. It was the Earth Peak's peak master, Mo Wu Hui. Looking at the new tombstone, Mo Wu Hui's eyes unconsciously shed 2 lines of tears. "Senior, all these years, no one dared to erect a tombstone for you. Because as soon as someone suggested it, many people would oppose it. They were too afraid. Your son erected it without anyone's consent. Huh. I see that your son will not disgrace you." Mo Wu Hui touched the tombstone and said sadly. Big sister Kong already agreed to it back then. Why didn't senior brother accept me? Before she died, she asked me to take good care of you. Why didn't you give me a chance? I know that you want to protect my life. But without you, what's the point of me living? Mo Wu Hui bit his lips and said sadly. Senior brother, although you can't accept me, you can't stop me from liking you. When you died that day, my heart had already died. I promised elder sister Kong that I would take good care of you, but you didn't give me a chance. I've thought about it. I'll help your son become the sect head. When he becomes the sect head, I'll come and see you. Mo Wu Hui said in a choked voice, Heaven Peak, King Yama's palace. When Yan Chuan returned, Feng Tairan also came to Heaven's Peak in the evening. Yan Chuan, I'm here to tell you that I'll be leaving the sect soon. I've already arranged everything for you to enjoy in the sect. Feng Tairan said. What happened? Yan Chuan asked doubtfully. Something did happen. Recently, a large number of demonic beasts escaped from the demonic Wind Mountain range. As a result, there are many demonic beasts around the Day sect. 2 first-generation disciples went to the demonic Wind Mountain range to investigate. In the end, one died and the other returned with injuries. Feng Tairan said with an ugly expression. You're going to the demonic Wind Mountain range? Yan Chuan frowned. That's right. Feng Tairan nodded. I don't care about your matters. Before I leave, I want to trouble you with something. Ha! Back then, there were 100 sects that forced my father to his death. Please write them down one by one for me. Yan Chuan said solemnly. 100 sects? You want to? Feng Tairan raised his eyebrows. Don't worry, I'll do what I can. Yan Chuan said. Chapter 255. Although a little reluctant, Feng Tairan nodded and said, Okay, you must be careful, don't be reckless. I know. Taking out a pen and paper, Feng Tairan quickly wrote. Great Winged Heaven School. Life League. Misty Mountain. Feng Tairan quickly wrote down all the 100 sections. 100 sects. My father said that the one who forced them to death was Emperor Mo Ku, a big shot from the west. These are all from the west? Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. No, these are all sects from the east. In fact, the main one is the Great Winged Heaven School. The other sects are all vassals of the Great Winged Heaven School. Feng Tairan said. Oh? I don't know if you're aware of this, but other than the Heaven's Merit Pool, there's also the Sect Conferment. The upper sect can confer titles to some middle sects, and the middle sects can confer titles to lower sects. The sects that have been conferred titles can receive the merit pool, but half of the accumulated merits must be contributed to the sect that conferred the title. Moreover, the upper sect has orders that the sects that have been conferred titles must obey unconditionally. I know that the heaven and earth merit pool obtained in this way does not belong to us. The upper sect can withdraw it at any time, and such vassals can only be vassals forever. The days of being a vassal are not good. Yen Chuan said in a deep voice. The Great Winged Heaven School is a middle sect. When the Great Winged Heaven School gave an order, nearly 100 sects all joined in. Back then, it was overwhelming. 100,000 cultivators surrounded the Day sect so tightly that even mosquitoes couldn't fly out. Feng Tairan smiled bitterly. Great Winged Heaven School? 100,000 cultivators from 100 sects? Yen Chuan's face was gloomy. The Great Winged Heaven School originally had no enmity with our Day sect. The one who ordered the 100 sects to surround and kill the Day sect was the current Shinkuin Kuroha. It seems that Emperor Imoku helped him win the position of sect master. Feng Tairan said in a deep voice. Shinkuin Kuroha? Yen Chuan nodded solemnly. I'm leaving soon. Take good care of yourself. Feng Tairan comforted. Don't worry. Yen Chuan nodded. After sending Feng Tairan off, Yen Chuan frowned and pondered for a while before bringing Lu Jin to the scripture pavilion on the main peak. With Feng Tairan's instructions, the guards of the scripture depository did not make things difficult for him. Peak Master Tian, there are nearly 1,000 cultivation techniques in the scripture depository. Have you thought of a good cultivation technique? I'll get it for you. The guard said respectfully. I want all the sword techniques, spear techniques, and whip techniques. Also, all the cultivation techniques above the earth level. Yen Chuan said directly. Ah. The guard was at a loss. What's wrong? There are spear techniques, sword techniques, and whip techniques. However, our Day sect only has the human-level cultivation technique. The only earth-level cultivation technique can only be practiced by the sect master of each generation. Only the sect master has it. The guard was in a difficult position. Then forget about the cultivation technique. Give me the movement technique. Yen Chuan said. Yes. Soon, nearly 100 cultivation techniques were delivered to Yen Chuan. Yen Chuan nodded. He let Lu Jin carry them and turned to return to the heavenly peak. In the King of Hell's palace. Hua Guang looked at the booklets in front of him with slight excitement. In the mortal world, this was a cultivation technique that people would fight for. Hua Guang. Here. Take these 20 spear techniques back and practice them well. Among the 100 weapons, the spear is the hardest to practice. It's easy to learn but hard to master. Some people practice only one spear for their entire life. If they learn too many things, they won't be able to master anything. Since you have chosen the spear, you will practice the spear for the rest of your life. As for other weapons, at most, you will have a shallow understanding. Yen Chuan said in a deep voice. Yes. Hua Guang replied. Also, only the cultivation techniques created by yourself are the strongest. Although these 20 spear techniques are powerful, they are suitable for the creator. You, the First Legion, practice them well. Assimilate them and make them your own. Then, create something that belongs to you. Learn from the strengths of other schools and create your own path. Yen Chuan said in a deep voice. Thank you, my king. Hua Guang said respectfully. Hua Guang understood that the king was guiding him. Although they did not address each other as master and disciple, the king's guidance was more detailed. Lu Jin, I see that you like to play with the horsetail whisk. You can learn this whip technique with me. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Ah. The Lord also practices the whip? Lu Jin said in surprise. I am also using it as a reference. Just like these sword techniques. Although they are ordinary, there will be benefits. Yan Chuan explained. Yes. Lu Jin nodded. By the way, my king, what do you mean by the earth-class cultivation techniques that you mentioned earlier? Lu Jin asked curiously. The techniques that we brought back are only techniques. There is another type of cultivation technique. The higher the grade of the cultivation technique, the faster the cultivation, the more solid it is, or the more outstanding it is in a certain aspect. For example, some ice-type and fire-type cultivation techniques are classified into different categories. The quality of these cultivation techniques is mainly divided into heaven-class, earth-class, and human-class cultivation techniques. Under the immortal cultivation techniques, heaven-class cultivation techniques are the strongest, and human-class cultivation techniques are the weakest. Yan Chuan explained. Oh, I understand. But our cultivation techniques are not even at the human class level. Why? Lu Jin did not understand. Don't worry. I will help you find them. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Yes, the two answered. Cultivate these cultivation techniques well. The First Legion should also rest well. Thousands of demons have escaped from the demonic wind mountains. In a month, I will take you out of the sect to kill them. Yan Chuan said in a low voice. Yes. Go. The two left the King of Hell's palace. They closed the door. Only Yan Chuan was left in the palace. Yan Chuan lifted his left sleeve. The seed-like birthmark on his wrist was exposed again. However, the birthmark was slightly different now. The seed had changed a little, as if it had grown. I have just reached the essence state. My essence is limited. How can I feed you? In a month, when the First Legion is mature, we will go out to kill demons and devour a large number of demons. Then, I will slowly refine the essence to feed you. Yan Chuan smiled. As he spoke, Yan Chuan's wrist trembled slightly. A green vine slowly emerged from the birthmark. The vine grew longer and longer. In the blink of an eye, it had grown to 20 feet. He held the vine firmly with his left hand and swung it slightly. The vine instantly wrapped around the Jade Emperor's sword not far away. With a slight pull, the Jade Emperor's sword flew to his right hand. In midair, the Jade Emperor's sword seemed to be struggling and trembled slightly. Buzz! The tip of the vine was instantly shattered. The Jade Emperor's sword also returned to Yan Chuan's right hand with the help of inertia. The remaining vine was unusually flexible. It was as if it was a part of Yan Chuan's body. Whoosh! The vine suddenly retracted into the birthmark on Yan Chuan's wrist. You're too weak. Right now, I can't use my whip techniques at all. Yan Chuan smiled slightly. But I believe in you, Poison Ivy. You will definitely be able to recover. Yan Chuan said with certainty. Chapter 256. A month later, north of Dae's sect. Yan Chuan led the army across the mountains and stopped at the peak of a mountain. Hua Guang and Lu Jin stood behind him. Yan Chuan touched the small gray jade token on his neck and smiled. King, the queen asked the great swordsman to give you a safety talisman when she arrived at Carefree City. Is the safety talisman still useful after entering the cultivation world? Lu Jin smiled. This is not a safety talisman. Perhaps Zizi has never seen a real one. She just wanted to give me peace of mind. Yan Chuan smiled. No matter what, it is the queen's goodwill. Even if it's just for peace of mind. Lu Jin smiled. No, this is not an accessory. This is called an Earth Escape Talisman. The great swordsman must have never seen it before, so he did not recognize it. Yan Chuan said. Earth Escape Talisman. That's right. This Earth Escape Talisman is extremely precious. Many times, it can save one's life. Even an Earth-grade cultivation technique might not be comparable to it. Yan Chuan said. Oh. Lu Jin nodded. King, where are we going? We saw some demonic beasts on the way. Why didn't you let us kill them? Hua Guang was puzzled. I'm bringing you to earn merit. Yan Chuan smiled. Merit? Hua Guang was surprised. King, how do we earn merit? Lu Jin asked curiously. It's not difficult, but it's not easy either. Oh? The purest form of gratitude is merit. Yan Chuan smiled. Gratitude? How? For example, let's say a bandit wants to kill 10 women and children. When the 10 women and children are at their most helpless, if you help them fight off the bandit or kill the bandit, will the 10 women and children be grateful to you? Yan Chuan asked. Probably. Yan Chuan explained, once this feeling of gratitude is produced, it will turn into merit. When you have a merit pool to absorb merit, this merit will continuously flow into it. Merit is a sense of gratitude. That's simple. Hua Guang exclaimed in surprise. That's not right, my king. What if it's the gratitude of being cheated? For example, if there were no bandits in the first place, I could lie to the women and children, saying that bandits were about to kill them. They would panic, and I could lie to them that I had already defeated the bandits. These women and children would still be grateful to me. Could this gratitude be converted into merit? Lu Jin said after some thought. Ha ha ha, well said, but that doesn't count. Why? Merit and virtue actually have to be separated into two words. One is merit and the other is virtue. To be more precise, the concept of gratefulness was the virtue. If one did not contribute enough merit to this virtue, how could it be formed? Whatever man does, the heavens are watching. Yan Chuan said with a smile. Yes, we understand. The two of them took a deep breath. All of you have experienced too little merit. As the peak master of Heavenly Peak, the merit I enjoy can double my cultivation speed. However, the merit sect master Feng Tai Ran enjoys can triple his cultivation speed. This is what it means to be in a lower sect. As one's grade increases, the effect of the merit that he enjoys will become stronger. Yan Chuan explained. Yes. We will work hard to accumulate merit. Hua Guang said excitedly. Let's go. The border of the Demon Wind Mountain Range is in front of us. It is a mortal kingdom. Now that thousands of demons have escaped, it will definitely become a gathering place for demons. Not only can we accumulate resources there, we can also earn merit. Yan Chuan said. Yes. Chapter 257. Half a day later, after crossing hundreds of rivers, Yan Chuan and the others stood on top of a hill. Everyone's eyes widened. In front of them was a city that looked like Yanjing. Most of the city walls had collapsed. Ah! Save me! Dad, save me! Screams of agony could be heard continuously. A large number of bat-like monsters were flying in the sky above the city. They kept grabbing mortals and taking them away, or they would eat them nearby. On the ground, there were also a large number of monsters. After breaking through the city walls, they kept biting the mortals. The scene was extremely bloody. It was like hell on earth. King. Hua Guang's expression changed. Monsters that are interested in mortals can't be too strong. They should be in the essence state. Go and kill them. Build up your achievements first, then you'll get good karma. Yan Chuan said in a deep voice. Yes. Hua Guang replied. First Legion, follow me and kill the enemies. Hua Guang shouted. Yes. The 3,000 soldiers of the embroidered uniform army were like ferocious tigers descending the mountain. Under Hua Guang's command, they charged straight towards the demonic beasts below. Fire. Hua Guang shouted. Bang! Thousands of arrows rained down on the bat monsters in the distance. Wah wah wah! The bat monsters roared angrily. Kill! Kill! The army charged into the city in the blink of an eye. There were hundreds of monsters in the city and hundreds of bat monsters circling in the sky. However, the army was well trained. Wherever they went, they were invincible. It's the Immortals. We're saved. Help! Save my dad. My dad was taken by the bats. That's great. As if they had entered hell, infinite hope appeared in the eyes of the people. The Immortals were here. Once they killed the monsters, they would be saved. Everyone was grateful. At the peak of the mountain, Lu Jin accompanied Yan Chuan to watch the massacre in the city. Wang, the cultivation techniques of the Immortal sect are indeed extraordinary. Hua Guang and the others' battle prowess has increased by at least 30%. Lu Jin said excitedly. Cultivation method? The best cultivation methods are all tempered in life and death. Yan Chuan said coolly. They quietly waited for the massacre in the city. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours later. After the army killed nearly 600 demonic beasts, the remaining demonic beasts fled one after another. We're saved. Heavens, the demon is gone, the demon is gone. I'm saved. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. The survivors in the city were all overjoyed. After a moment of ecstasy, everyone fell silent again. The pain of losing a loved one welled up in his heart once again. Fellow Immortals, if it wasn't for you, all the citizens in our city would have died. May I ask where you are from? Yi City would like to erect a shrine for all of you to thank you forever. The mayor stepped forward. We are from the Dai sect, the people of Tianfeng. My name is Hua Guang. Hua Guang said with a smile. Ignoring these mortals, he ordered his subordinates to carry the demonic beasts out of the city. When they left the city, all the citizens came out of the city to send them off. Many even kowtowed to express their gratitude. Waves of gratitude surged out of his heart. It was as if streaks of yellow light were rushing to everyone. The soldiers didn't notice anything, but Hua Guang had the army destroyer will. He felt a warm current flowing into his heart. At the same time, in the Dai sect. Rumble. Merit kept churning in the merit pool. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.